cooperated in battles on this battlefield and understand each other well. The enemy's iron skeleton warriors are immune to magical and physical damage, but that only applies to long-range attacks. In close combat, they can only negate 60 points of base damage. After saying this, the other leaped from the city wall, drew a combat dagger, and charged into the enemy ranks, starting to slash. In the distance, the Terminator felt a bit itchy. Was this guy really crazy? Although his muscles were well-trained, with high strength, defense, and agility, to compete with the Iron Skeleton warriors was absolutely foolish. Thus, he said to the leader, "This guy must be out of his mind. When will your main forces arrive?" Soon. Although the current battlefield situation showed that the Terminator still held significant initiative, it was no longer as one-sided as before the battle began. Therefore, the arrival of the leader's army would be the most secure scenario. Given this, it was better to eliminate the former ally before them. Iron Skeleton warriors. Take down that clown. Just now, the Iron Skeleton warriors hadn't retaliated because the Terminator thought the other was trying to escape. Unexpectedly, he really attacked his own Iron Skeleton warriors. Now, there was no hesitation. They would directly eliminate him, reducing one enemy. The agile figure of the other evaded the enemy's attacks, wielding a battle dagger that shimmered with a cold light, weaving through the crowd of Iron Skeleton warriors. In his eyes shone a determined light, and each swing of the knife was precise and swift. Every attack sliced through the metallic bodies of the Steel Skeleton warriors, producing piercing shrieks and sparks flying everywhere. Despite the overwhelming number of steel skeletons, the warrior controlled by Yuri showed no fear. Although he bore many wounds inflicted by the enemy, he seemed unfazed, maintaining his calm and decisiveness amidst the chaos of battle. Suddenly, Su Bai's eyes lit up. It was exactly as Rambo had said. The enemy was immune to ranged attacks, but only had limited resistance to close combat damage. Thus, Su Bai commanded Yuri X to call Rambo back. Once at the city gates, Su Bai tossed him a high-damage melee sword. Immediately, he ordered another green unit that had been waiting in the city to charge out. This unit was the only melee berserkers in the game. The ground trembled as groups of these berserkers huffed and puffed, marching heavily alongside Rambo into the enemy ranks. These berserkers were entirely green, stood over 3 meters tall, and were covered with bulging muscles. Even their brains seemed muscular. Their bodies were as tough as steel plates. The most impressive part was that they wore only titanium alloy shorts that would never break. Their bulletproof effectiveness was outstanding. The two sides officially ignited the great battle. Chapter 165. The berserkers absorbed the gas from the neuro-assault vehicles and become even more frenzied, annihilating the enemy. The berserkers, a monstrous creation of genetic mutation engineering, possessed immense strength. The research facility that produced these monsters had tested them, and the most basic berserker could deliver a punch with the force of an armor-piercing round. In their presence, even the armored bears could be reduced to scrap metal with just 4 punches. Neutral units like police dogs and crocodile monkeys posed no threat to them. Here, after countless trials by Su Bai, the berserkers he created were even more invincible. The sight of these gigantic creatures rushing and leaping, colliding with the Steel Skeleton warriors, was awe-inspiring. The berserkers swung their massive fists, crashing down on the steel skeletons like mountains. Each punch carried devastating power, striking the robots' metal shells with a thunderous roar. Such heavy blows could not be completely shrugged off, even by the steel-crafted skeleton warriors. With every impact, countless metal shards flew off them. The devilish Terminator, witnessing this scene, involuntarily took a step back. How could this be? How could there be a close combat force stronger than his own? His steel skeleton army was being injured. He stumbled as he issued new orders. The entire army concentrated their forces to launch a concentrated attack on the enemy. The steel skeleton warriors received the command, undaunted, ignoring their injuries, and met the onslaught of the frenzied beastmen with precise movements and swift reactions. The clash of steel arms against the fists of the beastmen sent sparks flying, producing a deafening sound of metal colliding. The collisions only fueled the battle fervor of the beastmen, their roars echoing through the battlefield, intertwining with the metallic sounds of the steel skeletons, creating a fierce symphony. On the battlefield, dust was kicked up by both sides' attacks, forming thick clouds of smoke. Within this haze, the beastmen and the Terminator robots chased and attacked each other, each collision seeming capable of tearing the land apart. Surrounding trees and stones were shattered by the shockwaves of the battle, turning the area into ruins. The ground was littered with metal fragments from the steel skeleton warriors and the bodies of fallen beastmen. The devilish Terminator was on the verge of losing his balance. He never expected that Su Bai would have such a powerful melee unit in reserve. This made him want to curse the intelligence agencies that had failed to gather complete information on all the units Su Bai had developed. Su Bai was also taken aback. After observing for so long, he was surprised at how weak the enemy was. The beastmen, now following orders, felt it was time to counterattack. Hundreds of beastmen charged toward the last line of defense of the devilish Terminator. The support had not yet arrived. It seemed he would have to resort to his trump card. With a sweeping gesture, he commanded all steel skeleton warriors to transform into their sharp form. Upon hearing the order, the bodies of the steel skeleton warriors suddenly changed. Their smooth metal shells began to twist and deform, with sharp spikes erupting wildly from their joints. Resembling a legion of steel hedgehogs from hell, this skill significantly enhanced their overall lethality. However, they could only choose between sharpness and sturdiness. Like a knife, achieving ultimate sharpness meant sacrificing absolute toughness. Therefore, this move entailed sacrificing 40 defense to gain 80 attack. The beastmen were clearly thrown off by this sudden transformation. Though their skin was tough, they began to suffer wounds under the assault of the sharp spikes, blood staining their grayish skin. Nevertheless, the beastmen did not retreat. They roared and swung their massive fists, attempting to confront the spiky steel skeleton warriors head-on. Every collision caused them immense pain, as if countless steel needles were piercing their bodies simultaneously. The battle losses on both sides quickly reached a balance. The devilish Terminator felt a surge of joy. Although his soldiers had become much more fragile, the counterattack from their spiky defenses allowed them to exchange blows with the enemy's monsters at a ratio of 21-1. This was already a significant improvement compared to before. More importantly, his forces were numerous, and he was not afraid of such attrition. Even Rambo, who had personally joined the fray, had lost an arm to his own steel skeleton warriors. Victory in this battle seemed certain. However, he did not anticipate that Subai merely clapped his hands. 2 nerve assault vehicles guarded the entrance of the city gate. Upon receiving the command, streams of red gas surged forth. The frenzied beastmen pouring through the city gate inhaled this gas even more eagerly, like newborns tirelessly rubbing the toxic gas flowing from the nerve assault vehicles. Soon, their green skin began to flush red, and their taut muscles became even tenser. Under the influence of the nerve toxin, the beastmen grew even more frenzied. Looking back at the spiky forces of the devilish Terminator, they resembled delicious roasted chickens, drooling and rushing forward madly. At this moment, they possessed faster movement speeds, quicker attack rates, and even more maddening attack power. Seeing the frenzied beastmen charging towards him again, the devilish Terminator put on his flashy sunglasses and casually popped 2 pills into his mouth. The energy that had once dried up within him began to coalesce again. In an instant, thousands of steel skeleton warriors were summoned once more. It seems that there's no need for the Grand Army to arrive. This young man will definitely fall to my hands. He activated his communicator. Mr. President, your army can take a break. The enemy's last resort has been exhausted. Once I take Subai's head, you can come over at your leisure. Upon hearing this news, the troops en route felt a weight lift off their shoulders. Great. You are the hero of our nation. A saint who loves the homeland. A citizen of our homeland. Citizen of our homeland? That title is nice. I'll have to use it when I receive recognition later. Of course, not only will we use this title to honor you, but we will also forge the highest grade equipment into a set of star-spangled gear, making you the most celebrated saint in the world. The two were still joking and relaxing when the frenzied beastmen clashed with the steel skeleton warriors once more. This time, the battlefield dynamic changed again. The transformed steel skeleton warriors appeared somewhat caught off guard by the beastmen, whose skin had turned red. Their spiky attacks, though still fierce, seemed somewhat inadequate in the face of the frenzied strength of the beastmen. Ignoring the backlash, the beastmen, empowered by the neurotoxin, launched a wild assault on the steel skeleton warriors. With a single punch, their fists struck the robots' metal shells like heavy hammers, producing deafening booms. Inside the robots, components began to shatter under the beastmen's onslaught, sending metal fragments flying everywhere. Essentially, now it only took one strike to leave the steel skeleton warriors battered and unable to continue fighting. Chapter 166. Threaten me? The only outcome is death. With a thud, the communicator of the Devil Terminator fell to the ground, and even his dark sunglasses slipped off his nose as he displayed a look of astonishment. How could this be? How could this wave of enemies be so much stronger than the last? He knew that maintaining his steel skeleton warriors in this form could inflict massive damage. Logically, the higher the enemy's attack power, the greater the damage received. But now, a single powerful punch had rendered his steel skeleton warrior scrap metal, leaving no room for counterattacks. Unexpectedly, the 3 who returned from the battlefield were unable to defeat a young upstart. The Devil Terminator quickly ordered his heroes to protect him and began to retreat towards the forces of his ally. Unfortunately, the beastmen were remarkably fast. They could leap dozens of meters in a single bound, directly blocking the Devil Terminator's escape route. Gritting his teeth, the Devil Terminator commanded his heroes to take the lead. His heroes possessed the ability to repair indefinitely, allowing them to hold out for a long time, while he seized the opportunity to slip away. Sure enough, as he expected, Under the frenzied attacks of the beastmen, his liquid metal warrior was reduced to mush. It then began to slowly coalesce and regenerate. This power drew all fire towards it. It seemed that this time he would finally escape. Just then, a gleaming dagger lunged at him. The Devil Terminator quickly dodged, but still left several holes in his stylish black coat. Do you really want to go to the inn with me? The attacker was Rambo, who had lost an arm. Now he had turned into a bloodied figure, his strong muscles covered in blood. The commander ordered me to kill you. I must obey the command. With that, he raised his knife with one hand and aimed it at the Devil Terminator once more. The Devil Terminator, however, tossed aside his sunglasses, feinted, and landed a strike on Rambo's abdomen. Why go through this? In the battlefield of all realms, you and I are just the lowest of the low. Now that we can finally be the boss of Blue Star, why must it be a fight to the death between us? The moment he was hit, Lon Bo's waist bent down instantly. He was sent flying over 5 meters by that force. Even so, Lon Bo got up from the ground, his eyes still hollow and lifeless. He raised his weapon and continued to charge forward. It seems you've really lost your mind. Then you shall die. Another strike. And Lon Bo's only remaining right hand was seized by the opponent. With a crack, his entire arm was dislocated, leaving him as nothing more than a stick figure. However, Lon Bo managed to get close to the neck of the Terminator, taking a bite and tearing out a large piece of circuit board and wires. The Terminator quickly covered his neck. You bastard. I modified this mechanical body with points, and yet you managed to injure me. Die. A knife hand plunged into Lon Bo's chest, piercing through it. At the same time, the units that Lon Bo had concealed with illusions also attacked. 7 or 8 figures used their small knives to stab numerous holes in the Terminator, some even cutting through wires, causing sparks to fly and making crackling sounds. At that moment, Subai walked over. The Terminator withdrew the knife hand and flung Lon Bo away. Impossible. My hero can respawn infinitely. How did you bypass his defense? Well, he respawns slower than I can eliminate him, so he is of no use at all. The opponent's hero was indeed formidable, Subai had to admit. He had once tried to erase it from the current timeline using the time-traveling army. However, that guy was merely randomly transported to another timeline. Both heroes and commanders have a connection. Once transported away, they would soon be sent back. After all, not being dead means the hero cannot escape the commander's control. So now, he was still being beaten by the raging beasts, unable to consolidate into a humanoid weapon. Are you going to kill me? You are quite self-aware. You people from that nation are so fond of starting wars. Having the 3 of you return from the battlefield of all realms to act as the vanguard for your country would plunge the entire world into disaster. You can't kill me. If you do, the god of the battlefield will find a successor, and then you too will end up in that terrifying space. Subai scoffed. If he had knelt and begged for mercy just now, Subai might have considered letting him go. But threats? Subai was never afraid of threats. Beside him, Boris raised an AK and instantly turned the Terminator into fragments. Subai picked up a fallen piece. A robot? Lumbo, who was on the brink of death, replied. That's right. He used the points earned in the battlefield of various realms to modify his body, which means he won't be controlled by mental powers and is immune to virus damage. Subai frowned and couldn't help but say, is it really that amazing? After entering the battlefield of various realms and completing tasks assigned by the main god, you can lavishly modify yourself with points. The other 2 and I scrimped and saved just to exchange enough points for a return ticket to escape. Before he could finish, the last man returning from the battlefield of various realms, Lumbo, also passed away. Take this man in the black leather coat back and carefully check the equipment on him. 2 mobilized soldiers carried the Terminator away. Yuri X beside him said, Respected Commander, I detected countless brainwaves approaching from afar. Subai also discovered through radar that there were densely packed heads and troops. It seemed that their number was no less than those troops that had been eliminated with a nuclear bomb in the palace of a certain country. It appeared that the enemy's entire army was mobilizing. With so many people, there must be at least several 100,000. If they were to defend on the spot, it would likely take a long time. After all, for the world's strongest nation, this was the most critical moment. The dispatch commanders were all elite level. According to the television broadcast, even the holders of the Golden Tiger talisman numbered over 800. Given this, Subai decided to use that move. Off the coast of San Francisco, on Devil's Island, for iron chains were being pushed into the air by a surge of purple, malevolent energy, slowly floating up. At the same time, it was accompanied by purple lightning radiating out with immense energy waves. Upon closer inspection, one could clearly see countless human faces swirling within this strange device. These faces appeared young, handsome, and quite confident. This strange device was the super weapon of Yuri's faction, the mind control device. Now, it had completed its countdown and was ready to launch at any moment. Chapter 167, Lightning Storm Strike. Wait, why does the cloud show a human face? A massive Inca stone pillar stood among the forces of the understanding king. This pillar was discovered when colonizers conquered the Inca kingdom. The pillar was intricately carved, featuring a solar eagle and some strange figures, which made it highly artistic. Setting aside its artistic value, the most important thing was that this pillar was the largest relic in the world. It possessed unparalleled power, as the emitted signal could cover the entire planet. Global live broadcast. The understanding king personally leads the charge, indicating that the world's strongest nation is about to take serious action. Subai thought to himself, as an internationally wanted criminal, instead of hiding in some desert or impoverished jungle country, he was actually considering counterattacking the strongest nation. What was he thinking? That's not necessarily the case. Historically, the navy of a certain country has been the strongest, but although its army has been engaged in battles for years, it primarily targets smaller and weaker nations. When it comes to fighting formidable opponents like Subai, who has returned from foreign lands, the outcome is uncertain. Regardless, intelligence indicates that Subai's legion, despite its large numbers, is still fewer than 10,000. The army led by the leader has a strength of 500,000. Even if Subai is exceptionally brave and commands well, after continuous battles with such a large force, he must be exhausted. Countries around the world watching this historic showdown have immediately split into two factions. Developed nations, including certain countries in North America and Europe, are filled with derogatory comments about Subai. However, the majority of underdeveloped and developing nations, with 90% of their populations, still support Subai. The reason is simple. Underdeveloped and developing countries account for 80% of the global total. They have long suffered economic exploitation led by developed nations. Their lives are filled with hardship. Everything Subai does is in the name of rising against this unfair status quo. To the global audience currently watching the live broadcast, I, the president of a certain country, will lead the righteous to defeat the world's #1 wanted criminal, Subai. In the live feed, the leader stands on a podium, raising his arm in a rallying cry. The camera then shifts to an ocean of various military forces below. The scene is striking and grand. As the camera zooms in, it becomes clear that many of the commanding forces possess exceptional attributes. Reports indicate that the Devil Terminator has been defeated and killed by Subai. Upon hearing this news, the leader is not surprised. No matter how strong a warrior is, they are still fighting alone. Only through unity can anything be accomplished. Now, let's use our human wave tactics to wear Subai down. Moreover, there is a secret weapon waiting to be deployed. How is our super weapon preparation coming along, Dr. Einstein? The leader asks a scientist nearby. After calculations, it is confirmed that the Air Force has loaded thousands of fire mages and ice mages. Allowing them to unleash their magic in the sky will cause temperature and cloud instability, quickly leading to thunderstorms. This is believed to have a decisive impact on Subai's forces hidden within the city. Excellent. All troops halt movement. Once our lightning storm super weapon destroys the city, we will launch a full assault and crush Subai. Subsequently, the leader takes out a treasured golden pocket watch, an extremely valuable relic. This watch can make time within a 10 kilometers radius pass at double speed. Although it may have some drawbacks, it can currently accelerate the cooling and heating of clouds to trigger thunderstorms. The leader glances at the watch on his left wrist. Only 10 minutes remain until the calculated formation of the thunderstorm. In 5 minutes, it will be time. Subai, this super weapon was once only used against minor threats. But now you will have the honor of experiencing the power of nature's thunderstorm. As the time arrived, the sky immediately changed color. The previously dark clouds transformed into a crimson hue, gradually coalescing together. All the commanders in the formation looked up, pointing and praising the spectacular sight brought by the super weapon. Ha! Subai is doomed. This madman who has caused chaos worldwide is finally being struck down by lightning. It's a sign of divine justice. Indeed, it's hard to imagine that one person could destroy the entire order of the blue planet. Our developed nations have been reduced to developing ones, and now we are all on equal footing. How can we still look down on those countries? President Dong, absorbing the changing air, felt incredibly relaxed. He aimed to be the first president of a certain nation to repel foreign invasions. Such an achievement might even surpass that of Washington. Just then, Dr. Einstein rushed over, beads of sweat on his forehead. President Dong, something seems off. What is it? According to past data, the clouds should turn black during a thunderstorm, but now they are slowly gathering to form a red color. There must be something wrong. Dong extended his hands, as if playing an accordion, and said, "My siblings are also doctors. Our whole family is filled with geniuses. It's normal for unusual phenomena to occur during thunderstorms. No one understands them better than I do. But we still have 4 minutes until the thunderstorm starts." What? At that moment, Dong remembered to check his pocket watch. 3 minutes and 58 seconds. How is that possible? How could the thunderstorm form early? Did I miscalculate? Before he could ponder further, the entire sky had turned a bright red, and the clouds began to take on the shape of a face. The people on the ground were stunned by this spectacle, They had never seen clouds form a real human face. If it had been an abstract face, they might have thought it was just a meteorological phenomenon. The key was, this face was unmistakably Subai's. Boom. A sound reminiscent of thunder finally erupted. A blue mist spread through the air, and everyone closed their eyes. Was the thunderstorm about to explode right here? The red sky gradually returned to normal, and many slowly opened their eyes, feeling their chests. They hadn't been struck by lightning. What on earth just happened? No one knew. Moreover, the most important thing was that they didn't even know what they were doing here. President Dong gradually regained his clarity, staring blankly at the scene before him. What is going on here? This thought soon led to the three soul-searching questions. Who am I? Where am I? What am I supposed to do? Not just him, but the tens of thousands of others below shared the same sentiment, until a voice reached deep into their hearts. I am Subai, the true ruler of this nation. Chapter 168. I declare, the people of this nation are the lowest of the low in the world. Who agrees? Who disagrees? Report. A scout from the periphery rushed back. Sir, the enemy commander is alone, yet he dares to face us bravely. With a few loud slaps, they were told not to be disrespectful to the master. The scout was bewildered. Subsequently, the 100,000 Central Troops, under Subai's mental control, swiftly issued new orders to the remaining 400,000 troops on the periphery. That is, everyone clear a path. The military band began to play, formally welcoming Subai's arrival. The peripheral soldiers who were not under mental control were completely confused about what was happening. However, since it was something that the president and his officials had nodded in agreement to, no one dared to defy the orders. In the live broadcast, Subai swaggered up to the president. The two sides stood facing each other. What is going on? Weren't they supposed to have a death battle? How did they end up meeting again? It goes without saying, Subai must have surrendered. With the arrival of the royal army, what choice did a clown like Subai have but to surrender? Haha. Indeed, this nation must be the greatest in the world. And soon we will surely see Subai kneeling and kissing the president's shoes. Meanwhile, on the other side, the meeting was in an uproar. We must rescue Subai. That's right, he is the hope of our nation. Although he has gone a bit too far, he did it for our revenge. We cannot let him bear the consequences alone. Everyone united in indignation. Notify the Foreign Affairs Department that if this nation takes any unfavorable actions against Subai, we will officially retaliate. Even if it leads to mutual destruction, we will not hesitate. Subai is a hero of our nation. He embodies our core interests. And for Subai, we would not hesitate to fight another battle. This time, we are not unprepared like last time. Before Subai left, Principal Kai Yuanpei came to the capital overnight and delivered dozens of weapon design blueprints. AK-47s, ammunition production diagrams, anti-aircraft artillery working principles. After overnight research by experts and scientists, a shocking conclusion was reached. If these weapons can be manufactured based on the blueprints, ordinary people without awakened abilities can also possess self-defense capabilities. It can be said that these weapons can elevate our nation's strength to an extraordinary level. If everyone is equipped with this kind of weapon, the entire nation will no longer be threatened by monster spawns in the wild. Currently, all the weapon blueprints have been sent to the military factory of the relevant department for secret research and production. Thus, having confidence in confronting a powerful nation like this is what Subai brings to them. Of course, these blueprints were merely sketches casually drawn by engineers commissioned by Subai from the military and allied forces. Strengthening his own country is also Subai's wish. However, with the differing thoughts of various countries and audiences on Earth, the plot seems to be developing in an unexpected direction. Suddenly, the leader facing Subai's direction weakly fell to his knees. Master, the welcoming ceremony wasn't specially prepared. I'm sorry. It's nothing. My shoes seem to be dirty. Upon hearing this, the leader immediately moved forward on his knees, ready to clean Subai's shoes. No, I can take care of my own shoes. Here, everyone is equal, so there is no such thing as subordinates. The leader quickly agreed and lowered his proud head. Subai placed his foot on the leader's head and bent down to start taking care of his shoes. Shocking. This scene left the entire world in disbelief. How is this possible? Shouldn't Subai be the one kneeling and begging for the leader's forgiveness? How did the tables turn? Moreover, there was no one present to oppose this action. It seemed completely natural to everyone. That day, heads of state from various countries met with countless analysts to analyze the current situation, but no one could figure out what was really going on. 2 days later, Subai moved into the presidential office. He was lounging with his legs crossed. Master, a group of rebels from Tennessee is planning to revolt. Send troops to suppress them. Understood. The Secretary of Defense immediately left the office after receiving the order. Master, your directive to abolish the dollar and restore the gold standard has faced opposition from many wealthy merchants and capitalists, reported the Secretary of State. All of them are against it. Soon after, the office secretary brought in a long list of names. These are the war criminals you requested to be executed. Subai carefully reviewed the new list and nodded in approval. Good, the efficiency is quite impressive. The list included officials who were labeled as war criminals for the previous invasion but were released as part of a deal. Particularly notorious were the biohazard units that committed countless atrocities in the country, and their safety was exchanged for handing over experimental data. These reports were obtained at the cost of many lives. The officials who issued such orders back then were also stained with blood. Now, they were all to be executed. The leader entered and whispered to Subai, "Everything is ready." Subai was very satisfied. Under the guidance of a certain leader, we arrived at the square of a prominent government building. Countless media outlets from various countries were already in position with their equipment. I believe that people from a certain nation are inherently inferior, born to serve the noble people of another great country. Therefore, starting today, citizens of this great country will enjoy the highest privileges in that nation. Additionally, in adherence to traditional practices, the institution of servitude will be reinstated there. All individuals of fair complexion can be traded. These statements caused an uproar worldwide, with countless people from that nation furiously condemning Subai. Strangely, however, not a single official at any level opposed it. Moreover, severe penalties were imposed on citizens who insulted Subai. This left the entire population of that nation stunned. Subai smiled. Every administrator at all levels in that country is under my control. How can you, the so-called inferior masses, challenge me? Having taken control of the entire nation, Subai produced a long and used token of fortune. This time, the token presented 3 national destinies, one of which was to restore the great country to its pre-war state, reconstructing all buildings and streets. Without hesitation, Subai chose this option. 3, 2, 1. In fact, after Subai eliminated the last strong contender returning from the battlefield of myriad realms, a countdown appeared before his eyes, seemingly confirming the words of a certain ominous figure. By killing them, he would become their successor. As a white light flashed, Subai opened his eyes to an endless expanse of bluestone pavement. Beside him were 3 other young people, all looking just as bewildered. At that moment, a woman with long, straight black hair, clad in combat attire, and strikingly beautiful, approached. She had a beauty mark near her eye and a slight smirk as she scrutinized the group, unable to hold back a laugh. The ones sent by the main deity this time seem utterly useless, she thought. Chapter 169. Don't ask if Subai submits. Do you have the power to make him? So this is the battlefield of myriad realms? Finally, I can enter the strongest place in the entire universe. This is incredible. With excitement soaring, having explored the entire planet, I finally found a more thrilling playground. It's said that in the battlefield of myriad realms, one can battle races from countless worlds, plunder their resources, seize wealth, food, and even women. The 3 besides Subai were all visibly excited and thrilled to be there. One of them, a young man with blonde hair, eyed the approaching woman with a lecherous grin. "You're quite a looker," he said. "Before I left the planet, I wiped out an entire city's population and was called the betrayer of God. There's a lot I don't know here. Come to me quickly, explain the rules. And as my woman, I'll definitely keep you safe." The other 2 were shocked by his words. This person had slaughtered an entire city, a true villain. Subai discovered the problem within. Before he entered the battlefield, the nation he was in was being severely oppressed, unable to slaughter the residents of the Sand City. If what this blonde said was true, could it be possible that this person came from a parallel universe? Before Subai could verify this matter, the woman in black casually waved her hand, summoning a girl with twin ponytails. The girl merely extended a finger. The blonde blinked, and a faint trickle of blood began to seep down from his forehead. Soon, the bleeding increased, and with a splat, he was split in half, collapsing to the ground with his intestines spilling out. This scene instantly shocked the 2 young men who had been excited moments before. Wow, this woman kills without blinking an eye. The woman began to introduce herself. "I am Sato Takara from the Demon Squad, hailing from the Empire of the Rising Sun, which dominates the Blue Star. You 3 newcomers will be my slaves from now on, and you must obey my orders here. It's time to show your loyalty." The woman named Sato Takara extended one of her high heels. The other 2, who were stunned, scrambled over like crazy to lick her shoe in a show of loyalty. Only Subai stood still, unmoved. Sato Takara furrowed her brow slightly. This young man seemed to be defiant. Upon closer inspection, she thought, he is quite handsome. He could be useful tonight. You seem to be defiant? Sato Takara kicked the 2 in front of her aside with an arrogant expression. What does your compliance or defiance have to do with me? You have 3 seconds to decide. Come over and kneel to me, or I'll have to remove your limbs and keep only the useful parts to become my toy. A toy? I thought you wanted to be my toy. Subai replied with a wicked smile. You're asking for it. Yuriko, break his limbs, but remember to leave the vital parts intact. They'll be useful tonight. After she spoke, the girl in a sailor uniform raised her left hand, unleashing a powerful force that sent debris flying. Countless concrete blocks came rushing towards Su Bai. The speed was incredible. No wonder they were from the battlefield. Even Su Bai's current attributes couldn't evade it. A gust of wind swept through, and his equipment began to tear apart, revealing his strong muscles. However, aside from the wind passing, there was no other effect. Yuriko. Increase your attack power. Kill him if you must. No one dares to defy me. But no matter how the attack was launched, Su Bai remained unmoved in the distance. It was only when the magic immunity talisman at his waist revealed itself that Sato Takara was taken aback. She couldn't help but exclaim, "That S equipment exchanged for points in the battlefield. How is this possible? You're clearly a newcomer. How could you have equipment from here?" Su Bai tore his tattered clothes and smiled as he replied, "You've been hitting me for a while now. Shouldn't I get a chance to fight back? Just once." Then, playfully using a clicking sound, he added, "Gotcha. Please take care of me." With a snap, he summoned Yuri X, who also wielded telekinetic magic. "Control her. No problem. My esteemed commander." Yuri X gently tapped her temple. Sato Takara, who was still in shock, gradually regained his composure and slowly walked over to Su Bai, kneeling down. "Master, I will obey your commands." Shock. The two newcomers beside Su Bai stared in disbelief. How could it be that such a terrifying woman was subdued by this young man in an instant? Which country was he from? No. He must be a powerful human from some parallel universe. One man with black hair, similar to Su Bai's, bowed and said, "I am Park Il Tyan from Blue Star. In our world, our great Goryo nation conquered Mars, becoming the first cosmic nation on Blue Star. I once killed 500,000 enemies in battle and earned the nickname King Sejong the Great. It's a pleasure to meet you." No need to say more, Su Bai thought to himself. Already certain that all those gathered here were humans from parallel universes. "I am Su Bai, and I too have destroyed the enemies, sinking their Tokyo." The other person, seemingly unconcerned, thought to himself, "Destroying a small enemy nation is nothing. It's just a tiny place. I not only wiped out the enemy nation but also destroyed the neighboring nation and even took down the populous nation." The man who had previously been indifferent couldn't help but be taken aback. No way. That populous nation is a major power with the largest population in the world. He actually destroyed it? However, that country was merely a pawn for another major power. In the end, I crossed the ocean and ruled over that major power, with the president serving me. As those words were spoken, the two men were left utterly shocked. Their initial admiration swiftly turned into reverence. So strong. No matter how many parallel universes there are, over 60 still regard that major power as the world's hegemon. He actually conquered it. The shock deepened even further. Su Bai did not pay attention to their expressions, but instead instructed Sato Takara, whom he controlled, to inform him about the situation in the battlefield of all realms. The so-called battlefield of all realms was a barrier set up since ancient times by the Xianyuan Emperor after becoming a deity, to fend off invasions from countless universes. Now, the Emperor was no longer present, leaving only the main deity responsible for selecting human warriors. Entering this place meant constantly completing tasks and achieving victories in battle, ensuring the existence of humanity on Blue Star across countless parallel universes. Every battle reduces the risk of invasion from various races by eliminating their powerful members. Naturally, killing these strong individuals also brings corresponding rewards, enhancing one's own strength. After understanding this, Su Bai had a rough idea of what this battlefield of myriad realms was all about. However, there was still a question. What exactly was the so-called Demon Squad? Before he could ask, a few people approached from a distance, and the leader spoke. "The Demon Squad is..." Su Bai looked up. The newcomers were bare-chested. Their muscular bodies were impressive, and they sported a pair of demonic horns on their heads, making them appear less human. "Who are you?" "I am the leader of the Demon Squad, Zhengzha." "Leader?" Next to him, a hero named Yuri X attempted to exert mind control over the leader, but the latter merely shook his head dismissively. "Humph, there's no need to waste your efforts. Each of us is equipped with anti-magic items here. Except for the one you've controlled, Sato Takara. So, did you come here to make me submit?" The newcomer emanated an overwhelming pressure that Su Bai had never felt before, putting him on high alert and ready to unleash all his forces at any moment. However, Zhengzha showed no intention of attacking Su Bai. "Don't worry, our Demon Squad values freedom. As long as you can keep destroying, no one will restrain you. Sato Takara's enslavement is her own choice. I won't interfere. Now that you control her, I won't intervene either." A young man beside the Demon Squad leader added. "Regardless, there are several doors at the back of this square. Each of you can open one door. Inside, there is infinite space for organizing and practicing formations." He pointed to a warm, white light above. "That is the main deity for exchanging points. After you complete tasks and earn points, you can exchange them for anything you need." Finally, Zhengzha said, "In 7 days, we will descend upon the continent of Azeroth to eliminate its races. By the way, Let me inform you that all of you who can join the demon squad are demons who have slaughtered tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. So feel free to kill there. With that, everyone dispersed. Subai did not return to his own room, but directly entered Sato Takara's room. After all, she had arrived before him and should have prepared quite a bit in her room. Entering her space would also facilitate his learning, allowing him to later arrange things in his own room. He instructed Yuri X to retain most of the woman's autonomy, with the remainder being obedient to him. Subsequently, Yuri X returned to the Stone Sea. Now, the woman who once wanted to control herself as a slave has transformed into her own servant, completely obeying her commands. As she opened the door, a shocking scene appeared before Subai's eyes. Barracks, armories, houses, canteens, command centers, and a central fortress, various buildings were all present. This woman had clearly turned her room into a military base. Master, that's my sleeping area. Should I accompany you tonight? Or should Hibari do it? Or both of us? But Subai was not interested. With a wave of his hand, he ordered, "Show me all your troops." In a flash of golden light, a massive number of troops instantly filled the entire base. There were samurai wielding katanas, infantry from a drilling spider tribe, and amphibious robots known as Tengu. Additionally, there were amphibious armored assault vehicles. It could be said that there was an unfinished faction reminiscent of a certain empire, with semi-finished units. Master, this is all my troop types, 2 types of infantry units and 2 types of armored units, covering land, sea, and air. Also, this Omega Hibari superpowered girl is the hero I have nurtured. Although Sato Takara kept introducing her troops, Subai didn't absorb a single word. He was deeply shocked. These units resembled various troop types from a certain game. However, these troops were not equipped with any firearms. Subai felt that if he could modify them, he could artificially create a faction of his own. Thus, he waved his hand again. 15 engineers from the Soviet forces and Allied forces walked out from his realm. Take a look and see if you can modify these infantry into units armed with firearms and energy katanas for my use. Understood, Commander. In Subai's impression, it seemed like the samurai from that game wielded kinetic carbines and energy katanas, equipped with helmets from that empire. If he could replicate them, he would have real samurai. While allowing the engineers to continue observing and designing the equipment for those samurai, Subai led Sato Takara to the plaza hall, intending to exchange points for those weapons to assemble real samurai. Sato Takara displayed her earned points, 5,000 points. That should be a considerable amount, right? Can you ask the main deity if there are any kinetic carbines available? Yes, sir. The next moment, a kinetic carbine appeared as expected. It seemed that the main deity was indeed omnipotent. As long as you could think of it, he could present what you desired. However, the price was not cheap. One of those guns actually required 500 points. Then, Subai asked her to check for the Empire's energy katanas. This weapon requires 200 points. The excitement that had been ignited was quickly doused with cold water. It's too expensive. It's surprising that purchasing these weapons requires so many points. Even if this woman is drained, it won't equip a few ordinary infantrymen. The two returned to the room. Forget it. Let's not think about this for now. Instead, I'll show my capabilities in the ladies' chamber. By the way, I'll teach her what the distinction between master and servant means. Halfway there, an engineer from a certain military faction rushed over. Commander, the thermal energy katana you mentioned should be powered by a nuclear battery. If you can provide me with a sample, with our technological strength, we should be able to replicate it. Hearing this, the protagonist felt a surge of joy. There was still a chance. He gave the lady a playful slap, and they returned to the hall. This time, he had her purchase not only a thermal energy katana, but also a kinetic carbine. The engineers from the Allied factions convened again and finally reached a conclusion. Although these weapons appeared very sophisticated, with the combined highest capabilities of the 3 parties, they should be able to manufacture them. However, one thing was necessary. Appropriate technological buildings had to be in place for replication. The engineers listed the required structures: high-tech command centers for both factions, barracks for both factions, as well as nuclear power plants and industrial factories. Building these structures required base vehicles from both factions. Generally speaking, base vehicles are the most crucial assets, and it's nearly impossible for him to retrieve them from the Stone Sea. After all, each faction only has one, and they cannot be produced through repairs. Therefore, these assets are regarded as treasures. However, in pursuit of new possibilities, he was willing to take on this risk. If something went wrong, at least he still had a base vehicle from a certain faction. Chapter 171. Imperial Warrior, Modification Complete. The base vehicles from the Allied factions emerged from the Stone Sea and found a suitable location to deploy. Meanwhile, the unit construction interface appeared before him. Starting from the most basic structures, power plants, barracks, heavy industry, and high-tech facilities, it took about an hour for the basic construction to be completed. Regarding the repeated construction, the protagonist had plundered quite a bit of gold, so he could afford these minor expenses. However, despite having built so many structures, He did not forget to return both base vehicles to the Stone Sea. After all, those vehicles were fundamental to his establishment. With the savings from the replication center, 200 engineers were produced at a low cost. Let them continue researching those weapons. The protagonist had no other tasks to attend to. It's time for this arrogant woman, Sato Takara, to experience the martial arts of the Dragon Kingdom. The door to her room opens. The pink walls are adorned with stacked dolls, and the entire space exudes a youthful charm. This seemingly icy and proud woman has a surprisingly girlish side hidden away. Master, would you like to eat first or take a shower? Let's do both together. Before finishing her sentence, Subai noticed something in the room. On a pink shelf, one item stood out prominently. He immediately dismissed the thought of taking a shower. In just 2 steps, he approached the shelf and began to rummage through its contents. A whip, candles, chilly water. He cleared away some useless items. Finally, he uncovered something quite extraordinary. Nano core, small, disposable, can form a battlefield cage when expanded. Subai picked up the object and exclaimed, "Where did this come from? Please don't be agitated. Let me and Yuriko serve you after your shower and meal, then I'll explain," she replied. At that moment, Subai had no intention of showering or eating. He only wanted to know the origin of this nano core. Seeing the woman in front of him fidgeting and uncooperative, he began a righteous interrogation. "Little devil, you must confess everything to Grandpa Subai today." Later that night, with a swollen body, Sato Takara finally revealed the origin of the nano core. This item did not come from the parallel blue planet of various dimensions, but rather from a mission undertaken by a demon squad during a fierce battle in the multiverse battlefield. They obtained it as a trophy after defeating the insect race, a reward given by the commander of the Holy Hall warriors. It was of little use, which is why it was stored in her room. However, this item resembled the nano core required for all buildings of the Rising Sun Empire in Red Alert 3. The similarities were striking. After acquiring it, Subai kept the item in his hand, even doing push-ups while carefully holding it with one hand. He was extremely cautious. The next morning, Sato Takara lay in bed, deeply asleep, after being interrogated half the night and then enduring another 4 to 5 hours of turmoil. She was finally getting some proper rest. Subai did not disturb her. He dressed and securely placed the nano core in his inner pocket. As he opened the door to leave, he glanced back one last time. One couldn't help but admit that this woman was quite alluring, especially with that beauty mark that made her even more enchanting. It must be admitted that if it weren't for her peculiar behavior, Sato Takara would indeed be a very charming woman. The woman hummed a few notes. Subai closed the door behind him as he left. It wasn't until the afternoon that Subai officially set out. "Commander, the thermal energy samurai swords have been replicated," reported the engineer. "Commander, the kinetic carbines have been placed," reported another engineer. "How many can we produce daily?" "With the current number of engineers, as long as you consume gold coins, we can produce 200 guns and 200 swords." Subai nodded. At that moment, Sato Takara arrived, having changed her clothes. "Master, why not let you use such good weapons first?" Subai shot a glance at the oblivious woman. "If I do that, wouldn't my original brothers have to discard their guns? That would be a loss, wouldn't it? It's better to arm this group of soldiers and let them serve as meat shields for my brothers. Any dirty or dangerous work should be commanded by Sato Takara." However, Subai did not scold Sato Takara in front of so many soldiers. If he were to get angry, it would be dealt with in private later. Subai remained calm and said, "Have your samurai switch to my swords." An imperial samurai stepped forward and switched to the thermal energy samurai sword. Buzz, 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 several yellow flashes lit up as a massive rock was sliced in half. Seeing the performance of this weapon, Sato Takara couldn't help but widen her mouth in astonishment. Isn't it too powerful? It's indeed a weapon obtained from the main god. It's a pity that such a good weapon requires a lot of points to exchange for even one. If all my imperial samurai were to have such powerful weapons, even emptying my savings wouldn't be enough to arm that many soldiers. Subai was quite satisfied with the imperial soldier's skill in using the samurai swords. After all, they were products of militaristic indoctrination. Their cutting technique was precise and impressive, which matched well with the thermal energy samurai swords. However, compared to the chopping techniques demonstrated by General Li Yunlong during the war against the enemy, these soldiers' skills were still somewhat immature. Nevertheless, they should have no problem dealing with the melee beast soldiers they encountered previously. "Let the soldiers try this," said Subai as the allied engineer presented the kinetic carbines. The sound of bullets firing echoed, leaving trails of light behind, akin to laser beams. The power was quite remarkable. "Master, this is much more powerful than my archers." "Of course, but such precious items shouldn't be left for just one soldier to use." Subai clapped his hands, and the engineer brought forth many more kinetic carbines and thermal energy samurai swords. Seeing so many carbines and samurai swords, Sato Takara was shocked and covered her mouth, unable to believe what was before her. How many points would it take to exchange for all this? "How many warriors does your empire have now?" 1,200. all armed in a couple of days. Ah, master, you are too good to me. With this, my infantry can charge into battle for you, slaughtering anyone who stands in your way. Sato Takara touched her face with one hand, her entire body tense. Her face flushed, her eyes filled with killing intent. As she spoke, saliva rolled and stretched between her lips, appearing somewhat deranged. Chapter 172, Increased Combat Power Officer. How can you just let it go? With a couple of slaps, 2 red marks appeared on Sato Takara's rear. The frenzied expression immediately stopped, returning to a more demure state. At this moment, Subai had already grasped this woman's nature. She was frantically twisted, with a deep-seated impulse for violence, but it was suppressed within her, preventing an outburst. Now that Subai had restored her personality, given the opportunity, she would lose control and go mad. Next, Subai handed the nano core to the engineers for research. After resolving the basic soldier types for the Empire's warriors, Subai began to study the spider troops within Sato Takara. These soldiers were ninja units, naturally adept at earth escape techniques, hiding underground and waiting for the right moment to strike. If combined with the MX-19 Muramasa individual plasma cutter, a true tank killer would emerge. With the weapons exchanged from the previous main god, Subai felt he was one step closer to completing the goal of all troops in the Red Alert 3, Rising Sun Empire. With another 5 finger marks left behind, Sato Takara covered her reddened wound and accompanied Subai back to the main god's hall. This time, Subai aimed to exchange for the individual plasma cutter. Miss Takara, how could you be controlled by this man? I have already exchanged for the antidote to the illusion. If you take it, you will break free from the control. Just after exchanging for the weapon, a man rushed over. His words were almost pleading, but his eyes revealed a fierce light, staring intently at Subai, as if Subai had killed his entire family. Kongu, please don't entangle me. Right now, both my body and soul belong to Subai. No. Your mind is under control. This is not what you truly think. He only wants to use you to fight for him. You are just a pawn in his eyes. Hey, who do you think you are? A random kid showing pure love here? The other party instantly drew a sword, and in the next moment, thousands of strong goblins surrounded Subai and the others. These goblins had transcended the traditional notion of goblins, their muscles bulging like mighty warriors. Some held staffs, while others moved swiftly with magical bows and arrows. There were even goblin priests and bards. This man named Tongu jumped directly onto the throne of the Goblin King, drawing his sword, hand over Gao Liang. In our demon squad, everything is about strength. Killing you is as easy as slaughtering a chicken. The commotion caused by Tongu immediately attracted all the members of the demon squad from the other rooms. There were a total of 10 people. Hey. There are women everywhere. Why are you fixated on this one tree? Tongu? Yes, as a demon squad, once we enter the battlefield of myriad realms, why bother with so many women? Killing this newcomer just makes you look incompetent. Hearing the others' admonishments, Tongu gritted his teeth. What do you know? This man has manipulated the one I love. He toys with others. It's unforgivable. I must kill him. A wave of black sword energy shot out, creating a crack over 80 meters long on the ground of the square. Subai barely managed to dodge. The man before him seemed to be far stronger than the 3 from that other country. At that moment, the captain, Zheng Jia, spoke slowly. Since Gao Liang has been controlled, I suggest you have a good talk with Subai about how to resolve this peacefully. If he decides to take drastic measures and instructs Gao Liang to commit suicide, you will end up with nothing. After saying this, Captain Zheng Jia left the noisy scene, causing Tongu to break out in a cold sweat. Indeed, how had he not thought of this? He had almost been blinded by anger. Let her go, and we can talk. Subai also disliked coercion. Regarding Sato Gao Liang, Subai's command was merely to ensure compliance with his combat mission. As for her personality and behavior, there were no fixed parameters. This woman could either hate him or love him. It was her choice. You said she is one of my combat powers. How could I just let her go? Moreover, I have no control over her personality and preferences. As long as you can persuade her to take your antidote, I don't mind. Subai certainly didn't mind, as he held the initiative. Come, take the antidote, and you will be fine. It was exchanged for 500 points. No, your medicine may not be good, but Subai's is definitely good. And what can you offer me? I can protect you. Sato Gao Liang snorted coldly. Unless you can give me power as strong as Subai's, in my eyes, you are just my servant. Sato Gao Liang's tone grew colder. How is that possible? He is just a newcomer. He doesn't even have any points. How can he make you stronger? I don't believe it. At that moment, 3 Imperial warriors approached. This is the basic infantry that Subai has transformed for me. Now, you can also choose 3 of your infantry to battle against me. If you win, I will take your medicine. If I lose, you must not bother Subai anymore. And you will voluntarily become my slave, obeying Subai's commands. Tongu tightly bit his lip. A teammate next to him joked, forget it, if they don't want to. It's all for nothing. When it comes to basic infantry, your goblins can't compete with his Imperial warriors. don't embarrass yourself. Yeah, if things go wrong, you might end up as a slave to a slave, which is even more humiliating. It's better to earn points during the next competition in Azeroth and strengthen your own power. Stop nagging. I accept your challenge. 3 infantry against 3 infantry. The reason Tongu dared to agree was that Sato did not specify whether to use basic infantry or advanced infantry. The opponent was using the most basic Imperial warriors, which are basic infantry. Moreover, both sides' strength, agility, and defense were quite similar. The only difference was that the opponent had advanced swordsmanship, which his basic goblins could not match. So he chose 1 elite goblin warrior, 1 elite goblin ranger, and 1 elite goblin warlock. 3 elite goblin soldiers to face 3 basic Imperial infantry. This battle was a guaranteed win. As long as Sato Takara took his antidote, he believed that once she regained her sanity, she would definitely continue to give him love as punishment. Tongu was quite cunning, truly living up to his reputation. Having 3 elite units against 3 basic infantry was clearly unfair. Even if he won, it would be a hollow victory. Those crafty players just love to use such underhanded tactics. Shut up. There are no rules against it. As long as we can win, anything goes. Chapter 173, The Battle for Azeroth. Subai decided to pit the Red Alert 4 factions against the 4 races of Warcraft. Both sides of infantry moved apart a bit. Tongu buffed his infantry to enhance their charge speed. The battle began. Goblin Warlock changed the terrain for the opponent. The Warlock suddenly began chanting a spell. The stone slabs beneath the Imperial warriors became muddy, putting everyone in a slowed state. At the same time, the Goblin Ranger pulled back the string of her magic bow. Unfortunately, before she could release the magic arrow, the Ranger was already turned into a sieve. Seeing the situation was dire, the Warlock immediately cast a healing spell on the Ranger. The kinetic carbine fired again. The Warlock was directly taken out. Tongu frowned, wondering what was happening. Wasn't he the opponent using swords for close combat? Why were they suddenly using ranged weapons? And with such power? Just as he was in shock, the Ranger was also eliminated. Only the elite warrior charged in front of one of the Imperial warriors. Fortunately, the elite Goblin warrior had been battle-hardened. Its attributes were significantly higher than those of the opposing Imperial soldiers. Die! The warrior's spiked mace came crashing down. The Imperial warrior immediately drew his energy sword to block. A swift slicing sound echoed. The mace split in 2. At the same time, 2 other swords pierced the elite goblin's chest. Thud! Thud! The goblin felt a chilling sensation. The Imperial warrior withdrew his sword and swung again. Thud! This blow severed the elite goblin's head. The elite goblin collapsed with a thud. The battle was over. On Subai's side, there was not a scratch. The 3 elite soldiers on the opposing side were eliminated in an instant. The members of the Watching Demon Squad were stunned. How is this possible? Sato Takara ranked at the bottom of the entire Demon Squad, except for a few newcomers. Unexpectedly, with just basic Imperial soldiers, he took down Kiragaya's elite warrior. Could it be that Subai really improved her strength? Kiragaya seemed frozen by an invisible force. His eyes wide open in disbelief, unable to comprehend the scene before him, until Sato Takara tossed him a collar. Put it on, and become Subai's slave together. Kiragaya slowly picked up the collar and put it on amidst laughter from the crowd. Regardless, Miss Takara, even if I wear this collar, I will become your knight and protect you. To be honest, Subai did not like the Minotaurs, nor did she want to be a lackey. Kid, learn to love yourself first before you can love others. Take it off. You've offended me this time, so I'll let you go with a minor penalty. Kiragaya felt indignant. How old are you? How dare you lecture me? I'll kill you sooner or later. As long as you're dead, Miss Takara will be free. But he only said, thank you. An allied engineer rushed over. Commander, we've figured out the nanocore. There are just some technologies we still don't understand. Subai asked the engineer to state what was needed. Next, they would let that unfortunate Kiragaya buy these parts through the main god. After all, one must accept the consequences of their bets. Time passed quickly. Tsunami tanks, tank killers, Imperial soldiers, and Tengu mechs. These 4 basic units were replicated through points exchange and had completely become similar to the forces of the Rising Sun Empire. In the face of the powerful Soviet military industry, various weapon parts were produced rapidly. Soon, they had armed 200 tsunami tanks, 1,000 Imperial soldiers, 500 tank killers, 800 Tengu mechs, and some striker mechs. It could be said that the shape of land, sea, and air forces was beginning to take form. The research on nanocores has reached a critical moment for the engineers from the 3 nations. They are compiling all current data and adding it to their own archives. Subai, alongside Captain Zheng, is heading to a certain continent. You newcomers will be responsible for eliminating a faction on the main continent and occupying their territory, providing us with a base of operations. As the main force of the demon team, we aim to confront the demon army of Amandrid, which could pose a threat to human safety by potentially opening a magical maze on this continent. Once the tasks were assigned, one of them said, haha, I'll take care of the Knoll tribes. I've heard the Murlocs are also quite formidable. Don't worry. I'll capture their lair and wipe out a few 100,000 to build us a solid fortress. Two newcomers, just like Subai, went their separate ways. Sato Takura explained to Subai, according to intelligence analysis, there are 4 major races on this continent, the Human and Night Elf Alliance, and the Orc and Undead Horde. Defeating the leaders of these races will earn us a significant number of points. However, these races are incredibly powerful and dominate the continent. Master, how about we attack the Naga? This race is essentially an abandoned faction of elves. They are disliked by humans and annoying to dogs, with no allies. The 4 major races are just right. With your Sunrise Empire, we also have 4 factions, 4 against 4, quite fair. Sato Takara was shocked. Unable to contain himself, he asked, Master, are you suggesting challenging all 4 races single-handedly? Exactly. This is too dangerous. Even Captain Zheng Jia hasn't had the members of the demon team offend all the races in this continent. If you really want to fight, it might be better to ally with the Alliance to attack the Horde, or rally the Horde to attack the Alliance. That would be more prudent. Suddenly, Subai gave him a warning slap. Ouch, that hurts. I told you to mind your own business. With a wave of his hand, Subai summoned the allied forces. The Su army and the Yuri faction, totaling nearly 5,000 troops. At the same time, heroes Boris, Tanya, and Yuri X appeared before him. Master, we are at your command. Commander, please give orders. Dear Commander, Yuri can help you resolve your concerns. Very well. Tanya, take the allied forces to attack the Night Elves. Boris, lead the Su army to attack the humans. Yuri X, take your troops to attack the orcs. Understood. 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 With the spy radar deployed, the fog of war over the continent was lifted. The 3 armies dispersed toward their respective enemy territories. What about us? Sato Takara asked. Subai smirked, of course. You will use your little minions to take on the real enemies. Sato Takara was puzzled. Wait, my master, what does little devil mean? Does it mean cute in our language? Boris led the charge with 100 Apocalypse tanks, 100 magnetic tanks, and 200 Rhino tanks, along with 200 anti-aircraft vehicles. The rest were the terrifying robot mobilizers. The storm city was shrouded in dark clouds, and on the city walls, the Dwarf King Stonehammer looked down at the thousands of bizarre troops below, frowning deeply. Below, a bearded man laughed maniacally. Surrender the city, or die? Chapter 174. The forces easily overwhelmed the human race, leaving Angelina shocked by their boldness. Where did these arrogant fools come from? This is the heart of the kingdom. Seeing the big, bearded man's arrogance, the king of the hills stroked his own beard. They were clearly courting death. Open the city, I will personally deal with them. The city gates opened, and thousands of human soldiers advanced in formation with shields, followed by dwarf musketeers and knights on the flanks. Kill them. At the same time, the besieging forces clashed with the enemy, tangled in fierce combat. Overestimating yourselves. The earth shook and the sky fell, as bloodthirsty warriors unleashed a tsunami of power. The soldiers below defended like an iron barrel, easily withstanding the enemy's overwhelming assault. Counterattack. Break into the city. The health of human soldiers and knights continuously diminished, and even elven priests joined the battle, tirelessly restoring their troops' vitality. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the gates of Stormwind City exploded open. Charge into the city. Not so fast. The gods descend. The king of the hill skin turned to stone, rendering him immune to all magical damage. With a mighty swing, the earth groaned in response. Paladins, save me. On the other side of Stormwind, the Archmage continuously summoned water elementals for defense. Unfortunately, he was not MT. Another city gate was breached, and a tide of enemies surged in, beginning to pillage and burn. Blood Mage Carl shouted urgently, quickly, set fire to block them. Where are the Blood Elves Dispellers? Fill the gaps for the knights. With a thunderous roar, countless houses ignited, and the central assembly hall of the human race was on the brink of collapse. A woman adorned in a finely embroidered silver robe with runes and star patterns picked up a magical staff from the weapon rack. Her skin was as white as snow, delicate enough to reflect the gentle moonlight. This magical robe fit her perfectly, showcasing her graceful figure while allowing her to move freely in battle. This woman was none other than Jaina Proudmoore, the highest leader of Stormwind City. Hold your ground. The team of magical witches and dragon riders has arrived. I believe we can defend the city. 50 water elementals have been summoned instantly to join the battle. Commander, the city is in chaos. Boris reported the current situation. Is there really someone who got here before us? In that case, let's eliminate this troublesome group and find out where they came from. Understood. When Boris arrived on the battlefield, he found magic troops engaged in combat with the city's defenders everywhere below. Leading them was a man with a big beard. These soldiers were composed of shapeshifters who could alternate between human and bear forms. They could enter the city, transforming into powerful bears to attack, or change back into human form to cast spells. Some giant bears were operating various siege weapons, breaching multiple sections of the city walls. The apocalypse tanks are ready. It's our turn. With a series of heavy rumbling sounds, the strongest battle force, the apocalypse tanks, mobilized. Following them were the rhino tanks. The armored anti-aircraft vehicles joined the battle with various soldiers. Boom. The cannon roared. The earth trembled. The shapeshifters engaged in fierce combat were unable to evade the incoming shells from behind. Countless explosions erupted, leaving craters filled with blood everywhere. A surprise attack. The entire army. Turn around. Unfortunately, it was too late. In the sky, the slowest Kirov bombers were drifting in groups. They continuously scattered aerial bombs, unleashing waves of fire, repeatedly destroying the shapeshifter troops. The shapeshifters had no way to escape, engulfed by massive explosions. Where they passed, landslides occurred, and amidst the cries, there were no remains left. Impossible. The airships in Azeroth can't possibly drop bombs. And with such power, as fear gripped him, the Kirovs swept across the sky. Captain, it seems other squads have entered, requesting support. Hold on, we are about to send troops to assist you. A vodka bottle was thrown over. With a bang, the bearded man was ignited. After rolling continuously, he finally extinguished the flames. Under Commander Su Bai's command, how dare anyone steal his prey? They truly don't know what is good for them. Death awaits them. Tat 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 tat. Boris fired into the sky. At the same time, thousands of soldiers echoed in a mighty roar that resonated throughout the city. Meanwhile, the soldiers and commanders fighting on the front lines quickly turned back to reinforce the rear troops. Angelina gasped for breath, her chest rising and falling violently. Her legs weakened, and she half-kneeled. Even with her staff to support her, she struggled to maintain her stance. Who is it? Who defeated the enemy outside the city? Was it reinforcements? Could it be the reinforcements of the Night Elves? But those explosions, those fire spells, and the soldiers who looked human, none of them resembled the Night Elves at all. Instead, the attacking enemies here looked just like the druids among the Night Elves. After resting for half a minute, she forced herself to move and finally arrived at the ruins of Stormwind City. Watching the battle gradually come to an end, she shouted, "Magnetic Storm Infantry, wrap it up. Go through every single corpse." The Magnetic Storm Infantry indiscriminately released powerful currents on the bodies of the enemies. They pierced these giant bears with high-voltage electricity again. Some corpses trembled violently, resulting in a series of explosions. Which heroes are you from? Thank you for helping me protect Stormwind City. Angelina quickly expressed her gratitude. Our commander is Su Bai, and we were ordered to occupy this place. I see. That's understandable. After all, we couldn't protect it ourselves. May I meet your commander? I want to thank him in person. 2 hours later, the sorceress Angelina and another combat commander arrived in Su Bai's camp. Here, thousands of Imperial warriors had just broken through a necromancer's outpost. Everywhere were the bodies of ghouls and the ruins of burned buildings. Angelina covered her mouth in disbelief. Because the enemies these human soldiers were about to face were the undead. With such frail bodies and no heavy armor for protection, how could they possibly compete against the Plaguebringers and Abominations? Not to mention the Death Knight Arthas, controlled by the Lich King, who could also manipulate his mind. She had always been unable to face Arthas, the man who had been seduced by the Lich King. After all, there had been some feelings between them, like that of lovers. Unfortunately, they never ended up together and never even reached that point. Chapter 175. The magical shackles are broken, the stone sea springs converge, and Su Bai's energy limit is enhanced. She had now become the highest spiritual leader of Stormwind City. Although on the surface her blizzard skills appeared frosty and proud, deep down she still yearned for a hero who could save humanity, just like the original Arthas, rather than being a strong female leader. I don't know where you are from, but I am grateful to you for saving Stormwind City. You seem to have misunderstood. My occupation there is just the first step to ruling Azeroth. Angelina was taken aback. This man had a commanding presence, and there was an aura of dominance in his every gesture. His words seemed to be spoken casually, yet he intended to conquer Azeroth. Reflecting on how he had easily defeated such a formidable enemy with just a small contingent, she felt a mix of admiration and dread. He may have that strength. Angelina smiled lightly. If powerful individuals settle in Stormwind, we certainly welcome them. Even more welcomed are you sweeping across the realms, joining forces with the Night Elves to form an alliance to defeat the tribal forces of the Beastmen and the Undead, driving them out of the land. Su Bai chuckled. This woman seemed a bit off. I clearly came to conquer them. Yet these people are so weak, surrendering without a fight. This young lady seems to have misunderstood something. Who wants to form an alliance? What I mean is, on the continent, only one power can dominate, and that is the Red Alert. Red Alert? Angelina had never heard of Red Alert. What does that even mean? That's right, Red Alert, a warning for those who see me, level 1 alert. As he spoke, the Dragon Slayer's sword was brandished again, imposing and awe-inspiring. Perhaps influenced by Su Bai's dominance, Angelina's heart raced, as if it would leap out of her chest. If this man could drive away even the Night Elves, then wouldn't the continent be ruled by humans? Is the human emperor about to descend? Commander, I am willing to represent all the soldiers of Stormwind to follow your orders and restore the reign of the human emperor. Unexpectedly, Subai splashed cold water on her enthusiasm. You? It's better for you to go home and have children. You seem quite honest, and I, Subai, am not someone who likes to bully honest people. Humans are not a conquered nation. Angelina felt a lump in her throat. Why is it that she can never convince the man she likes? This made her frown. That night, in the command tent, do you need to be served? My lord, Sato Takara whispered. No need, Subai replied. The allied forces led by Tanya had not yet reached the territory of the Night Elves. Yuri mentioned he led his troops into the Thunder Lizard's lair during the march, controlling many Thunder Lizards that could spit fireballs and unleash lightning. It delayed some time. Currently, Subai was not in the mood. Commander, Angelina especially sent you a sheep as a token of gratitude. Huh, a sheep? What is that about? Dismissing Sato Takara, Subai had the Imperial warrior bring the sheep in. This sheep had wool as white as snow, but its 4 hooves were as black as silk. The tail was quite large, swaying as it walked, looking indeed plump and enticing. It would probably sizzle with some cumin if roasted. Delicious. However, why send me a sheep? Subai stepped forward to stroke the wool. Suddenly, with a bang, a puff of powder flew up, and the sheep transformed into Angelina's appearance. You? In the advanced skills of the Magic Academy, as a great mage, how could I not understand? Just like that, without any clarity, Subai found himself enjoying a whole roasted lamb. The lingering magical essence filled his parched stone sea, immediately flooding in like a torrential river of magical energy. This power surged repeatedly in the boundless stone sea, ultimately flowing towards the sunken areas created by the mining carts. It gathered into a massive ocean of magic, akin to a sea. Some of Subai's companions in the stone sea were directly swept into this energy and drowned on the spot. Subai was taken aback. The energy system within him, which had always been locked away, suddenly broke free like shattered shackles. Congratulations, your energy limit increased by 55. Congratulations. Your energy limit increased by 1515. Congratulations, your energy limit increased by 8585. Congratulations, your energy limit increased by 255,255. Congratulations, your energy limit increased by 12551255. Congratulations. Your energy limit increased by 999, 999, 9999. This woman, how could she let her magic leak out? The magic she transmitted shattered his previously unbreakable shackles of power. Since that's the case, shipyards of the Allied forces. Activate. The Sioux Army shipyard activate. Yuri's shipyard activate. Finally, he could build a shipyard in the Stone Sea. Angela smiled and pouted. What? Aren't you also enjoying the sensation brought by this magic? Do you dare to tease me? Subai, a person who always preferred to take initiative, immediately created 50 ocean rogue dolphins in his Stone Sea. Under his command, they swam upstream, galloping through another vast ocean. The next day, dressed appropriately, he saw Angela seemingly still enchanted by the playful dolphins. Dolphins, stop playing. Angela took several deep breaths before returning to normal. I wonder if I can join you in the fight for dominance in Azeroth now? Subai nodded. After all, he could control those over 50 dolphins. If this woman had any ulterior motives, she probably wouldn't be able to execute them. All right, you go back to Stormwind City and maintain order. Return to the camp. In the camp, Sato Takara had prepared a delicious breakfast. While eating steak, the captured commander from yesterday was brought up. Speak, what is your name? Pramil. I warn you. If you kill me, it means you'll be at odds with the entire Northern Wilderness team. It's best to let me go, and I won't pursue this matter when I return. Northern Wilderness team? Sato Takara explained from the side, after entering the battlefield of Myriad Realms. Those who kill the most will be assigned to the Demon team. Others will be distributed to their respective regional representative teams. In the Northern Wasteland, our captain has united with the Beast and Undead clans to form a tribal army sweeping across the land. I advise you to think carefully. Surrender might be a better option. I see you have black hair and yellow skin. Are you from the Central Region team? Seeing that, Subai did not respond. The other party assumed he was scared. Subai rubbed his head, and a term he had never heard before popped into his mind. Sato Takara continued to explain. The Central Region team is the representative team of the sub-region in the battlefield of all realms. I heard it is currently weak and considered a low-tier team. Haha, you don't even know this? Rookie, I still advise you to let me go. In the entire battlefield of all realms, aside from the Demon team and our small squad, we can easily handle the representative teams from other regions. After finishing a whole steak, Subai wiped his mouth and nodded. I see, but I am actually from the Demon team. Chapter 176. The Allies easily overpower the Night Elves. Tyrant shouts invincibility. Upon hearing this, he felt as if he had been thrown into a dark, icy pit. a chilling sensation trembling through every nerve in his body, causing him to shiver involuntarily. The dragon-slaying blade swung down. Kill enemy member. Gain points, 6,000. Randomly plunder enemy unit. Arctic grizzly bear, gaining points was within Su Bai's expectations, but he was surprised to find he could also plunder enemy units. With a casual gesture, he consumed 100 energy points. A 3-meter-tall giant bear appeared before him, exuding a fierce aura, its eyes filled with bloodlust and brutality. Unfortunately, ordinary beasts were simply not impressive to Su Bai. He thought he should have the engineer modify it to see if it could be transformed into a giant bear unit from his forces. He recalled it back into the Stone Sea. Humans, you dare to tear up the contract. Today, I will ensure you have no way back. Tanya led the charge into the forest where the night elves resided. Countless forest spirits were slaughtered by the soldiers. We are the allies, lovers of peace, and must submit to our rule. The half-deer forest guardians, with a casual gesture, brought the entire forest to life. Vines twisted and whipped at the soldiers entering, while the sound of breaking bones echoed continuously. The night elves drew their bows, relentlessly shooting at the entangled soldiers. This group of soldiers displayed unparalleled ferocity when they initially gained the upper hand. The dark-skinned elves became their playthings, and cries filled the air. The second hero, the Forest Watcher, summoned the goddess of vengeance. The bodies of the slain soldiers transformed into enemy warriors, charging towards the allied positions, attempting to cause trouble for them. However, the group of resurrected souls, after emerging from the jungle, became targets for the heavy tanks and soldiers deployed. Tanya laughed heartily, crazily firing her dual pistols at the approaching enemies. Behind her, dozens of armored fortresses crushed trees to carve out a wide path in the jungle. The troops surged in like a tide, unleashing an offensive reminiscent of a raging wildfire. Rocks collapsed, and massive boulders came to life. The giant mountain titans shook off the dirt from their heads, casually uprooted towering trees as weapons, and began striking the armored fortresses that entered the area. Tanya felt no worry. Sure enough, while the defensive king with resistant and hardened skin could contend with the battle fortresses, it could not withstand the lethal light beams from the tanks behind. Those colossal beings were battered, their rocky bodies shattering and dust flying as they fragmented piece by piece. Tanya was very satisfied. Her master, Su Bai, had summoned her to oversee the battle. If she failed to capture the night elves, she would face punishment upon her return. Punishment was a minor concern, but losing favor would be a significant issue. Dealing with these savage tribes, the Righteous Alliance, although causing numerous deaths in the conflict, would at least bring the light of civilization through their artillery, changing their primitive lifestyles and embracing democracy and freedom. After the phantasm tanks entered the jungle, they began to create confusion. The Forest Guardian, a half-deer being, desperately tried to cast spells to awaken the trees disguised by the phantasm tanks. No matter how he unleashed his skills, the disguised phantasm tanks remained unresponsive. Instead, the thermal cannons fired, causing the Forest Guardian's health to dwindle. He had no choice but to release his ultimate ability, Serenity, to alleviate the pain suffered by the forest. A warm, humid gas, refracted by sunlight, quickly restored the various forms of life around him, including his own wounds. Riding a white tiger, the Moon Priestess Tyrant looked at the devastated jungle in disbelief. Had the human race gone mad? They had once been beaten down by the Burning Legion, so why were they now so powerful? It was impossible. The dwarf's technology could not be that advanced. With a blink, the jungle sentinel, clutching his wounds, arrived beside the half-deer guardian to heal. This was too strong. If they had such power, the human race would have long eradicated the tribes. Tyrant pondered for a moment. According to the original alliance with the humans, they should first eliminate the tribal faction and then backstab the humans, allowing the forest to flourish throughout Azeroth. The humans must not be allowed to recklessly cut down trees. Could it be that our plans have been exposed? The three heroes fell silent. It indeed seemed so, otherwise the humans would not have mobilized so extensively to suddenly attack the unprepared night elves. Let's proactively seek peace. If this continues, the forest will definitely be completely burned down. I, the Moon Priestess, Tyrant, hope to negotiate surrender with the leader of the human race. In front of Tanya, Tyrant laid down her weapon and walked out of the jungle alone. All right, your entire army can disarm. Tyrant had no choice but to agree, while the remaining soldiers cheered and charged in frantically. You can't do this. Tyrant bit her lip, regretting her agreement to the terms. On the contrary, Tanya laughed heartily. You know, for the sake of a harmonious world, we should support all hybrids. Just like in our country, influenced by the darker-skinned populace. The new generation has all shades of brown skin, so everyone is equal. Take her away, escort her. As Tyrant was escorted, the allied forces showed her no disrespect. Instead, they preached to her along the way about democracy, freedom, and a series of ideas she had never heard of before. Additionally, They discussed the contributions made by countries that were required to limit carbon emissions, which hindered their development. These ideas entered Tyron's ears, causing her to mutter to herself. These people don't seem to be like those humans from Stormwind. Their thoughts are truly unique. Thinking of this, she increasingly wanted to meet the true leader of this force. The transformation of the war bears was complete. The engineers proudly modified the units plundered by Subai. They indeed incorporated the characteristics of the Soviet army, coincidentally resembling the war bears from Red Alert 3. Engineers are truly versatile. At this moment, Tyrant entered. The enemy commander had been captured by her. In just 2 days, she had defeated both the humans and night elves, earning a total of 120,000 points. She wondered how much she could enhance when she returned to the main deity. Thank you for allowing our surrender. You shouldn't be from Stormwind. Why did you attack us, night elves? It's nothing. The struggle for Azeroth doesn't require a reason. Of course, no reason is needed. Subai was only in it for points. The stronger the enemy defeated, the better. We are willing to submit to the human race, and both sides will become one. Saying this made Tyrant feel a bit guilty. She wondered if the thoughts Tanya had shared with her were truly correct. Chapter 177, Bloodline Fusion. Have you really been brainwashed by the Allied soldiers? Subai was somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected the night elves to be so open-minded. No wonder there have always been stories passed down through the ages. For instance, that spirit enticing a poor scholar. The two enjoyed each other as company. It turned out to be true. So, I am willing to start from myself. Tyrant felt a bit shy. A large patch of green leaves fell on the wounded head of the jungle guardian. My lord, some green herbs have been prepared for you by Lady Tyrant. They are ready for you to drink now. Dear, you really care about me. In the evening, Tyrant entered a state of concealment. And Subai also wore the ring that allowed him to become invisible. Inside the big tent, Tanya entered to check, moving back and forth with her gun. There was nothing. Within 2 days, they had conquered 2 factions. Subai couldn't help but feel it was a bit too fast. Perhaps it was because of his robust physique. However, Subai always felt that things were different from what he had imagined. He had thought that competing for dominance in this world would require a steady and gradual approach. He never expected that the native factions would be so weak. It might also be the power of technology overpowering ancient magic. He wondered how things were on the other side with Yuri. On the other side, in the Orc camp, it turned out that the second and third brothers had been taken down by the Central Continent team, which was quite pathetic. Yeah, a team as weak as the Central Continent couldn't even handle 2 of them. Did they suddenly unleash some brilliant strategy? Brother, our Northern Wilderness team is fine, right? We've already scouted that the yellow-skinned man is leading a detachment to our main base at the Orc camp. Members of the Northern Wilderness team were eating and drinking at a large table, while Orc laborers continuously brought in fresh meat. The team leader picked at his teeth. No matter what, the main god has allowed us to advance to the battlefield of 10,000 realms first, which is to help us build good relations with the 4 major factions and gain an early advantage. Although we've already taken down the Orc and Undead alliances, the enemy has only found one of them so far. We can't act recklessly. After saying this, he downed a strong drink and tore off a piece of spine from a cooked knoll to gnaw on. Upon hearing the captain, the others immediately lost their appetite. Just one person from the Central Continent team took down 2 of us. What if the others are lying in ambush around? If we act recklessly, won't we fall into a passive position? After finishing the bone, the captain continued. So, if the enemy doesn't move, we don't move. If we remain completely still, won't we just be like turtles? You damn it. We unite and guard the Orc base, letting the undead take the initiative to attack the enemy commander. I believe with Arthas's strength, he can easily handle a small Central Continent team. When the exposed enemy feels threatened, the other hidden members of the Central Continent team will definitely show up to help. Then we can strike in one go and achieve a complete victory. The captain then added, after all, on the entire continent of Azeroth, only the Orcs are the strongest faction among all races, with the highest health and defense. They can be considered the mightiest. Boss, brilliant, brilliant. While the members of the Northern Wilderness team were still discussing, the battle horn had already been sounded. The Orc watchtower shot arrows for defense. Everyone exchanged puzzled glances, unsure of what was happening. Could it be that the hero commanded by this leader was leading troops to attack? That seemed unlikely, as there were only a little over 1,000 units combined. The Orc forces here numbered in the tens of thousands. Besides, we were all present. Where did he get his confidence from? After a long pause, the leader finally spoke up, suggesting that they should change strategies and confront the enemy, showing the Central Continent team the strength of the Northern Wilderness team. The captain burped and then opened his mouth. Others nodded in agreement, and one person patted his chest, saying, Boss, just let me go. Watch how I use the iron-blooded demon lord's vast army of demon warriors to defeat them in cooperation with the Orcs. That would also prevent exposing their overall numbers and strength, the captain agreed. The iron-blooded demon lord was well known, a superhero from the demon underground city. able to unleash endless flames in an instant and cause tremendous destruction with a snap of his fingers. Not to mention, his regular troops were elite units from the demon race. This strength ranked among the top in the entire Northern Wilderness team. And even in the battle teams across the realms, he was a formidable force. Moreover, the summoned demon troops numbered in the thousands, with extraordinary attributes. Just he alone could easily wipe out a country, let alone deal with a detachment of the Central Continent team commander. Volif, showcase your prowess next. A chorus of swallowing sounds followed. The Thunder Lizard used its devouring skill, swallowing a row of orc units whole. The Yuri clone controlling it displayed a charming smile. Feeling relaxed and at ease. Even if it required some mental effort, so what? Intellectual workers are inherently more valuable than mere foot soldiers. Phantom Wolves. Attack. The orc leaders summoned thousands of Phantom Wolves, flanking the Thunder Lizard's attack and charging into the Yuri clone's formation from the side. Foolish, Yuri said lightly. 5 Gator motorcycles cut through the pack, and rotary machine guns spat out tongues of fire, slaughtering hundreds of Phantom Wolves and shredding them all. Meanwhile, the Minotaur warriors, led by the Minotaur chieftain, toppled 2 storm tanks, finally getting close to the Yuri clone's formation. Unfortunately, the brain control vehicles were deployed. All the Minotaur warriors fell under control. Dozens of multifunctional infantry vehicles carrying engineers rushed in to heal them. The powerful Minotaur warriors clashed with the chieftain, dealing heavy damage. Old Bull spit blood. Today, we feast on our favorite dish, potato beef stew. Yura, Yura. Yuri's new recruits shouted excitedly. After all, most of these soldiers were recruited from a region that had faced economic collapse, where even bread required queuing to buy. Now, with Yuri declaring they would have beef, cheers erupted like a tidal wave. After several hours of battle, the Beastmen forces had dwindled to less than 2,000. Although these soldiers were fearless, strong, and resilient, they still could not withstand Yuri's mind control. This mental manipulation was deadly without bloodshed. One could only watch as their closest comrades suddenly turned against them, stabbing them in the back. It was utterly shameless. Boom. A disciplined march emerged from the Beastmen camp. Thousands of demon soldiers charged out, each with a fearsome appearance, yet exhibiting ironclad discipline. Chapter 178. The Beastmen are also beasts, sharing the same roots. Why the rush to harm one another? Yuri, can you handle the suddenly increased forces from the northern front? Subai monitored the war's progression through spy satellites. Rest assured, my esteemed commander. This group is merely trying to strike a rock with an egg. His words were calm and serene, devoid of any emotional fluctuations. Suddenly, a blade pierced through. Vrolaf clutched his chest in horror as he stared at the orc hero known as the Swordmaster before him. He had been careless. He hadn't deployed his cloaking devices in advance. Unexpectedly, the orc Swordmaster had also been controlled by the enemy. A swift movement drew near, piercing through his chest. In an instant, the Ironblood Demon King and thousands of demon soldiers launched an indiscriminate attack. Betrayed, the entire Beastmen faction plunged into chaos. Damn it! Countless alien forces unleashed torrents of corrosive acid, instantly melting the Ironblood Demon King. The captain appeared. Such powerful demon soldiers had been effortlessly countered by a mere swordmaster. Vrolaf was utterly useless. Or perhaps that young man from the Central Continent also possessed mind control psychic troops. It seemed defeating this unique contingent was crucial. Otherwise, the undead would likely struggle to cope as well. In no time, other team members surged out, each unleashing their own troops. They decided to mobilize the entire army to take down Yuri. They truly hadn't anticipated the betrayal of the Orc Swordmaster, who had ambushed Vrolaf and killed him. Instantly, the intensity of the battlefield escalated. 20,000 elite warriors surged forward like a tidal wave, instantly overwhelming the frontline storm tanks. The rampaging beastmen were unleashed. A furious beastman, having absorbed the toxic gas from the psychic assault vehicle, grew enraged and picked up the weapons of fallen beastmen soldiers from the ground. The clash between the opposing forces has begun, a true confrontation of strength against strength. Unfortunately, the combat power of the Minotaurs falls short of that of the genetically mutated savage orcs. The powerful savage orcs easily defeated the strongest Minotaur warriors. Picking up the fallen war totems, they swept through the battlefield, instilling fear in the hearts of all team members. The intensity of the battlefield increased. They initially thought it was the enemy's intensity that had risen, making the fight more difficult. To their surprise, it was their own side that had intensified, and the battle became increasingly desperate. Clearly, they had an absolute advantage. Why wouldn't this enemy force just fall? The captain said in a hoarse voice. I will check the situation at the front line. After speaking, he summoned the alien mother, continuously laying eggs on his allied orcs to hatch countless new aliens. He then rode on one of the aliens and swiftly headed toward the front line of the war. However, as soon as he arrived at the front, he saw his alien transform into a puddle of green liquid. What kind of attack was this? Looking up, he realized that the shadow above was not a cloud, but a circular flying object in the sky, releasing beams of deadly radiation light. Waves of blood-red light beams fell, causing mass casualties among the troops. It was like divine punishment. One beam of death light struck down, leaving a scorched mark on the ground. The captain quickly dodged, barely escaping. However, the tail of the alien he was riding was severed in half by the laser. Green, strong sulfuric acid blood sprayed out. Quick, activate our anti-air heavy firepower. Just as he finished speaking, the captain's arm was hit by the death ray and began to melt instantly. Gritting his teeth, he swiftly drew his knife to sever the arm, narrowly avoiding further radiation from the severed limb. The team members were horrified by the scene, struggling to breathe. At this moment, over 100 anti-aircraft devices filled with magic arrows were activated. In an instant, a rain of arrows was unleashed, blocking out the sun and illuminating the sky. Then, the magic on the arrows ignited, starting an endless blaze, like meteor bombs launched into the sky. They attacked the UFO that blotted out the sky with fervor. However, even this fierce assault did not provide them with a moment's relief. In the distance, magnetic electric tanks, accompanied by waves of gravitational force, lifted all the anti-aircraft devices and moved toward the front line of the battlefield. At the same time, ground-based Gatling artillery vehicles unleashed a torrent of bullets, all aimed at the anti-aircraft equipment that could launch rain-like arrows. With a cacophony of noise, wooden shards and stone plates flew everywhere as the goblins inside, who had been preparing the arrows, were reduced to fragments. This completely shattered the morale of the team members. They had worked hard to transform their air defense units through points accumulation, which possessed massive destructive capabilities and were almost invincible in the sky. Back in the battlefield of the Ring War, they had successfully hunted the dragon smog with this set of weapons. However, they never expected to face such defeat now. With not a single enemy aircraft brought down, the initial goal was to eliminate this particular force, but it had now turned into a situation of constant defense, trying to prevent the enemy from breaking through their last line of defense and invading their base to capture them all. Everyone felt heavy-hearted, continuously replenishing energy to deploy units and fill the gaps on the battlefield. Just then, they heard a hoarse long cry from behind. Countless attacking aliens all returned to the alien mother, forming a powerful protective shell around it as it advanced towards the battlefield. Meanwhile, the captain used an acceleration spell on the entire team, increasing their overall movement speed by 80. Captain, are you planning to escape? The others scattered to break through, aiming to meet at the undead base. Despite trying various methods, they could not stop the advance of Yuri X. The captain of the Northern Wilderness team had already proven he could not win this war. Retreating was not a shameful act. As long as they could survive and pass through the next few days smoothly, they could earn points on other battlefields and make a comeback soon. The others also used their own survival items to break out. Fortunately, although the alien mother had high defense, it was a large target that drew most of the firepower, giving them a chance to escape. Subai watched this scene and smiled, realizing they were heading towards the undead side. This would allow him to wrap things up with the Rising Sun Empire. However, before that, Yuri X, continue the attack, occupy the Beastmen's base, and plunder their gold. Understood. My esteemed commander. Without the assistance of the Divine Team, the Beastmen's base quickly fell. Many powerful leader heroes perished in countless battles, turning the entire base into a paradise for the frenzied Beastmen. The laborers provided fine wine and meat for the Beastmen to feast upon. Male Beastmen had to surrender to Yuri and reduce themselves to slaves. The Beastmen laborers transported bags of gold to Yuri X. Yuri X frowned. What? The labor efficiency is so low. This is simply a waste of manpower. After saying that, 2 slave mines were moved close to the gold mine, and these Beastmen laborers were incorporated into the slave camp, working tirelessly with a 996 schedule, having only 1 day off a week, contributing valuable resources for Commander Subai. Chapter 179. Facing the Undead Army. The true evil spirits are the enemy forces. Of course, there are many female orcs within the tribe who welcome the savage orcs. Firstly, they share similar skin tones, and there is no racial gap between them. Secondly, the tall and strong savage orcs resemble fitness trainers, stimulating the hearts of every woman wanting to experience fitness in yoga pants. The male orcs, treated as slaves, can only watch their wives indulge with others, biting their teeth in frustration. They can only consider it a lesson in skills. After training by the Moon Priestess Tyrant, Sato Takara's archer squad has significantly increased the power of their arrows. The entire army is now assembled and ready to attack the last stronghold of the undead. This time, the main combat will be handled by the female forces. Subai can simply observe, as he does not need to spend his resources. This also serves to test the effectiveness of his modified units. Moreover, he cannot allow this woman to only serve a minor role beside him, otherwise, it would be a waste of his resources. After all, Practice is necessary to validate everything. So, can you tiny team members escape? Subai asked coldly. These individuals must be dealt with. They will eventually become an obstacle. Therefore, Subai would not let them go. Imperial warriors. Cut off their heads. Ahead. The second wave of the undead ghouls has moved to the front lines. At the same time, the Imperial warriors opened fire while drawing their energy swords, striking at the ghouls' heads. It's a game of spirits battling spirits. Those who have escaped the pursuit should have felt relief, but they dared not relax. Respected master of the undead, wielder of Frostmourne, Lord Arthas. The enemy is powerful. Please be cautious. The Death Knights of the undead lord scoffed. Subsequently, Frostmourne was plunged into the corrupted land, covering vast areas with a massive layer of ice. Suddenly, the ice cracked, and a giant skeletal dragon emerged. This giant dragon, covered in bones, had sharp horns on its head, and its mouth opened wide to reveal razor-sharp fangs. It let out a deep, angry roar. Stepping forward and rising to hundreds of meters, the undead can open portals to other realms and conquer all worlds. The tiny human race is like a clown before me. Boom. The dragon roared, and its massive bony wings flapped. Countless frost crystals condensed around the corroded trees. Then, a storm surged upward with incredible might. However, just as everyone marveled at the power of such a colossal creature, anguished cries echoed from the front lines. Simultaneously, the defensive tower exploded. Following that, the warriors of the Empire stepped over the heads of ghouls and breached yet another layer of defense. It must be said that while these warriors were brutal, they were disciplined and showed no fear when faced with the ugly and terrifying undead soldiers. With an overwhelming battle cry, the soldiers of the Empire, following the most ruthless and savage principles of the warrior code, charged once more through the lines of the ghoul army. They even inflicted casualties on the ranged attackers behind them. These warriors not only beheaded the ghouls with their swords, but also ripped their hearts out. Some became so frenzied that they severed every leg of the cave demons, resembling giant spiders, leaving them incapacitated on the ground. They then used their swords to scrape against every hair on their bodies before finally piercing them through. Such cruelty made Subai feel that the soldiers of a certain nation appeared absolutely kind in comparison. Meanwhile, Commander Sato Takara, looking terrifying like a ghost, with disheveled hair and one hand brushing against his bangs, revealed a cruel eye as he laughed maniacally. Aha! Aha! Kill them all! Kill them all! Even the flesh-eating ghouls feared the true humans. The front line began to collapse, and thoughts of escape arose. How terrifying! Those humans, clearly not ghosts. They could commit acts even more brutal and vicious than the undead. Just with the charge of the Imperial warriors and tank hunters, they had already killed 2,000 ghouls and cave demons, and the victory was still expanding. Corpses littered the area for miles around. Behind them, plague abominations wielding iron chain hooks dragged fleeing ghouls, tearing them in half and stuffing them into their mouths. These cowardly humans taste so good. They actually want to run away. At the same time, demon necromancers with horns began to chant resurrection spells under the cover of powerful abominations, transforming the dead bodies into new combatants to reclaim lost defensive areas. There were hundreds of these necromancers, and together they unleashed their magic, instantly summoning thousands of skeletons. Subai smiled. Is summoning corpses your specialty? Then it's time to use my own resurrection as well. Let's see whose skeletons are stronger. Yours or the undead I will raise from your bodies. Subai stepped out of the tent, ready to make a grand gesture. Sato Takara quickly intervened. Master, there's no need for you to take action on such a trivial matter. She promptly commanded several dozen strike robots, modified by a certain technology company, to transform into helicopter form. They unleashed a rain of missiles from the sky, striking down on the skeleton soldiers below. In an instant, the underground demons also began to counterattack. The skeleton soldiers fell one after another, as if they were being harvested. Hundreds of demons hiding underground emerged from the soil, waving webs in an attempt to ensnare the strike robots in the air. Meanwhile, tank hunters skilled in earth evasion techniques also surfaced from below. They activated their thermal cutting guns, aiming at the surviving underground demons and slicing through their bodies. The demons struck by the thermal cutting guns were easily dismembered. Like fish on a chopping board, their bodies split open and scattered across the ground. Anti-air. We must deploy the strongest anti-air defense. The captain earnestly urged. Shut up. Useless humans. This is no place for your chatter. Frostmourne buzzed ominously, poised at his throat. A small wound appeared, instantly frozen by the blade. The captain raised his hands, his eyes wide, not daring to move his throat. The fine beads of sweat on his forehead quickly turned cold. The Death Knight before him was far too powerful, exceeding the combat capabilities of their small team. They could only cling to him for support. Otherwise, they would be utterly unable to handle the member from the opposing team. Chapter 180. The Empire's transforming mecha easily defeats the dual demons in the sky. A multitude of gargoyles mixed with the iron-winged demons from the team charged down towards the Imperial warriors below. They traced dark lines in the air, exuding an aura of death that appeared particularly terrifying under the sunlight. Watching from below, even the sunlight seemed to be suppressed. A dangerous atmosphere once again filled the air. Sato Takara was not one to back down. With new orders issued, the strike robots descending from the sky transitioned through mechanical transformations. They resembled mechanized fighting roosters, thanks to the joint technological development between a certain military and allied forces. They had achieved an 80 resemblance to the true form of the strike robots from a renowned strategy game, although there were still differences from the original version. They possessed the ability to strike airborne targets from the ground and vice versa, transforming seamlessly in a manner akin to yin and yang, each countering the other. Ground form. Rain of fire. Fire. In an instant, the gargoyles and iron-winged demons in the air unleashed their weapons at the ground, while the ground-based strike mechs responded in kind. A terrifying explosion echoed between heaven and earth. Boom. Countless fiery rain danced mid-air, forming a dense and terrifying curtain of fire in the sky. On the ground, Imperial warriors continuously fell in battle. Meanwhile, many gargoyles were obliterated by explosions, scattering like petals from a divine maiden. Both sides were locked in a stalemate, continually replenishing their forces to fill the front lines. Neither could gain the upper hand. Master, should we convert the ground-based Tengu units into flight mode to attack the enemies in the sky? The Tengu mechs are amphibious units, capable of transforming into air-to-air fighters in the air and into ground-to-ground combat mechs on the ground. Their primary weapon is a pair of rapid-fire cannons positioned on either side of the air intake. Although they are equipped with large-caliber rapid-fire cannons, they do not carry many heavy weapons due to the need for agility in flight. They perform well in suppressing enemy infantry on the ground, but their effectiveness against aerial units seems limited. When facing air-to-ground attacks, they can retaliate reasonably well, but direct confrontations yield less impressive results. However, Tsubai agreed with Sato Takashi's suggestion, as he wanted to test the performance of these units in battle. After all, it was Sato Takashi's troops that were at stake. Her forces were meant to be expendable. Tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. The Tengu mech pilots immediately transformed into aerial mode. The old-fashioned fighters shot through the sky like arrows, relentlessly pursuing the group of gargoyles ahead. The sound of their gunfire echoed continuously, with bullets pouring down like a torrential rain, causing members of the gargoyle group to fall amidst the concentrated fire. These undead creatures seemed unfazed, skillfully dodging, and some even dove suddenly, emitting ultrasonic waves that took down dozens of Tengu mechs. Nonetheless, within the dense fire net of the Tengu mechs, the gargoyles were shot down one by one, and the battlefield situation quickly shifted back in favor of Sato Takashi. Ha, master. So powerful. The modified soldiers are indeed too strong. A fierce and frigid gale swept through, and a massive shadow flapped its wings as it flew over. The members of the Northern Wilderness team were overjoyed. The powerful bone dragon of Arthas had finally made its appearance. At the same time, more gargoyles and death statues transformed into destruction followed the icy bone dragon, returning with a vengeance. Soon, snow began to fall across the entire sky, the temperature plummeting as countless attacks surged forth. Many Tengu mechs were struck by the incoming fire. Before dying, I could only control the mech to crash into the enemy's position on the ground. It was a wave of divine wind attacks. Tsubai? Launch. On the ground, explosions erupted like small cruise missiles. Many spirit mages of the undead race were struck by the fire-wrapped Tengu mech. Amid the explosions and flames, their long millennia of existence came to an end. Ruthless. Sato Takara, as a citizen of the Sakura nation, inherently carried a ruthless aura. Even when his own soldiers died, he aimed to pull off a big move before his end. In terms of ruthlessness, the Empire of the Rising Sun was indeed fiercer than the undead race. Roar. The icy bone dragon exuded an extremely low-temperature chill from its mouth. An invisible dark light surged forth, sweeping out temperatures that froze planets. On the icy path, various airborne units' engines immediately stalled. Even the anti-low-temperature liquid began to freeze. Losing control, they plummeted downwards. The pilots could only try to adjust the descent trajectory of their mechs. Ultimately, they fell into the enemy camp, resulting in a series of explosions that ended their final moments. Subsequently, the Earth was frozen. The Empire's samurai tanks and bow-wielding maidens had no time to evade and became frozen dumplings. Ice sculptures stood on the front lines like tombstones, awaiting the enemy camp's crypt lord to summon carrion beetles, which would use their sharp, resilient pincers to crush the soldiers' skulls, madly feasting on the low-temperature tofu pudding. At the same time, Tsubai, feeling the drop in temperature, looked up at the sky filled with phantoms, and his lips involuntarily curled into a smile. Interesting. Such a powerful bone dragon seems like a very intriguing target. Though this statement was simple, it did ignite Tsubai's interest in the battle. Initially, he had looked down on Sato Takara's attack and had no intention of dealing with a mere undead. The reason was simple. He had already clashed several times with the Burning Legion, which was also undead, in the Outer Realms. Those enemies were crushed under his might. Therefore, Subai had no fighting spirit until this powerful ice dragon appeared, reigniting his awareness of battle. However, before Subai could take action, two individuals approached from behind. One carried two huge, plump white rabbits, while the other held two large, plump purple rabbits. One was an elf, and they surged forward to stand before Subai. It was none other than Angelina and Tyrant, the leaders of the two races. Subai, our dwarven gunslingers have arrived and can assist in battle. The archers of our night elves have also arrived to support you in dealing with the ancient ice dragon. Subai was dismissive. With your outdated firearms and primitive bows, can you compare to the weapons held by any soldier in my ranks? Angelina excitedly replied, although those dwarves' firearms are indeed inferior to any of your soldiers' weapons. We are not afraid of death. Tyrant added, I am the glorious Moon Priestess, one of the guardians of the forest. It is our duty to fight against the undead. Rest assured, under the illumination of my powerful aura, I will lead the archers into battle alongside you. Chapter 181, Subai Strikes. Instantly eliminating 5 team members let those thirsty and eager ones venture into such a dangerous battlefield. It's so cold, and Subai prefers a warm drink. He didn't want to see 2 ice-cold bodies brought back. Moreover, he had no objections to those scruffy dwarves going to their deaths. However, he couldn't help but feel pained at the thought of those elven archers meeting the same fate. After all, in the vast dragon kingdom, how many young men struggle to find a partner, suffocated by the burden of dowries? If these graceful, exceptional, strong, and beautiful elves could be brought to the dragon kingdom, it would alleviate the pressure on so many struggling individuals. Thus, Subai stepped forward, waved his hand, and declared with authority, you too, obediently serve your purpose. Little undead. How ridiculous. Do you think that Arthas dares to seek death, not understanding the value of choice? After saying this, he drew his Browning from his waist. The silver spear gleamed, followed by a flash of cold light. Boom. The allied forces prepared various units. The opposing forces prepared various units. The Yuri faction prepared various units. The 3 factions gathered, the atmosphere tense and murderous intent filling the air. The army exuded a chilling aura that made Angelina and Tyrant take several steps back. They were both top magic users in their respective factions and inherently possessed strong perception abilities. The killing intent displayed by Subai's forces far surpassed that of the undead troops that thrived on death. Attack. The infantry and tanks coordinated, and the entire army accelerated. The rumbling of massive machinery echoed, shaking the ground. In just a few breaths, Subai's forces established an impenetrable iron defense, as solid as a super fortress. Boom, boom, boom. On the ground, waves of skeletons were crushed by tanks. Even the enemy's meat shield, the Plague Fatty, was obliterated by the metal storm. The meat grinder catapulted against V3 rockets and was utterly defeated. The pit demon faced the magnetic tank and was completely overwhelmed. The necromancer clashed with the light beam tank and suffered total defeat. The alien faced the phantom tank and was annihilated. Boom, boom, boom. 5 beams of death erupted. The stubborn squad members were directly blasted apart. Kill hostile members. Gain points. 6,000. Randomly plunder enemy troops. None. Kill hostile members. Gain points. 4,000. Randomly plunder enemy troops. Enraged werewolf. Kill hostile members. Gain points. 4,000. Randomly plunder enemy troops. Divine crossbow chariot. There are still empty rewards. After killing 5 opponents, I only obtained 2 types of troops. I wonder how powerful the plunder troops really are. Subai summoned the energy of the stone sea within him. The enraged werewolf, along with the previous giant bear and divine crossbow chariot, were released. They entered the battlefield together. These soldier units might be somewhat lacking in direct confrontation, but they are quite effective in clearing the battlefield and eliminating the remaining enemy units. We know why we had to flee to the undead faction to continue fighting the enemy. It was truly a mistake. If we had surrendered and handed over our treasures back then, we wouldn't have ended up in such a dire situation. The remaining team members and the captain have long lost any will to resist. They never expected that even the most powerful undead faction in Azeroth could not withstand a single member of the Central Continent team. Who on earth is this person? What kind of monstrous existence is he? Damn it. Alien evolution. Unwilling to be surrounded and annihilated. The captain commanded his aliens to secretly attack the strongest meat shield of the undead faction, the Plague Abomination. Countless face-hugging creatures burst out from the eggs laid by the alien queen, parasitizing within the abomination. He hoped to evolve his aliens further by acquiring the abomination's DNA, becoming even stronger. Hold on. Just hold on for another 2 hours. No. If we can hold on for another half an hour, we should be able to hatch even stronger aliens. At this moment, Thunder rumbled in the sky. As if a celestial being was undergoing tribulation, dark clouds loomed overhead. And the world was shrouded in darkness. The clouds frozen by the ancient ice dragon continued to accumulate, and from a distance, strong convection currents of hot air surged in. Heat and cold clashed in the air. Then, with a flash of lightning, a purple bolt split the sky, illuminating the battlefield below. Thunder roared. The purple light flickered. The battlefield lit up once again, but it was different from before. The previously aggressive ranged troops of the Central Continent team had completely retreated. Instead, it was those plundered troops that advanced. The captain squinted, sensing that something extraordinary was about to happen. Sure enough, a bolt of lightning struck down, and the ancient ice dragon attempted to evade, but its wing was still hit by the thunder. Flames erupted on its wing as the ice dragon roared and charged into the sky. Its wing left a charred mark. Thunder struck again as the ancient ice dragon rolled and dodged within the clouds. However, this time it was even more unfortunate. A thunderbolt struck its entire body. The ancient ice dragon let out a painful roar, its body continuously sinking. It wanted to fly away, but its speed could not keep up with the lightning strikes, ultimately crashing to the ground with a deafening explosion, sending dust soaring into the sky and obscuring the entire atmosphere. Bolts of electricity came down from the storm clouds. On the battlefield, amidst the chaos of thunder and lightning, charred corpses with the scent of flesh were created. Angina's keen eyes quickly discerned that this was the power of magic that could alter the weather and conjured this fierce thunderstorm. She glanced at the man beside her, mouth agape in shock, unable to utter a word. This man, during their intimate moments, did not give any indication of the powerful magical waves he could unleash. Instead, to win his heart, she had infused him with her own potent magic. What infuriated Angina even more was that this guy had even brought in a few dolphins into her magical source, making her face flush with embarrassment. And she could only bite her lip in frustration. However, even with all this magical energy, he could not unleash such a formidable lightning spell. For someone like her, conjuring a blizzard would consume a significant amount of magic. Where had he learned such a thunderstorm spell, and how did he possess such an immense reservoir of magic? Realizing this, she looked up and noticed Tyron frowning deeply. Taking a deep breath, she instantly understood what was happening. It had to be that old wizard who had climbed into Su Bai's bed to replenish his magic. Damn it, despite all precautions, a home thief is hard to guard against. She had let her guard down and hadn't he expected Su Bai to not even spare his own mother. A dark line appeared on Angina's forehead. Meanwhile, Tyron was also shocked by the power of this thunderstorm spell, unable to help but ask, such powerful magic. Even Gul'dan couldn't achieve it in his time. What exactly is this? Su Bai smiled, gently patting his chest and pointing to his stone sea, saying, super weapon, lightning storm. Chapter 182. The entire North Wilderness team surrenders, the Death Knights, shocked by Su Bai's power. Upon hearing this name of the spell, Angina and Tyrant, both great mages, realized just how inexperienced they were. Meanwhile, Sato Takara beside them couldn't stop laughing and covering his head, shouting die. Die, die, die. Just all die? Just all die? After the thunder, witnessing Su Bai's true might, the remaining members of the North Wilderness team no longer had any illusions. Before the next wave of alien hatchlings could finish, they surrendered in disgrace, becoming prisoners of war. At this moment, Su Bai, stepping over the charred corpses, looked at the surrendered prisoners being escorted forward and felt quite pleased. The other teams on the battlefield were nothing compared to this. To think of competing with Red Alert was simply a delusion. One lightning storm, and they were all wiped out. The crowd pleaded for mercy, willing to contribute all their points to spare their lives. After some rough calculations, with the points they were willing to offer, Su Bai now had a total of 50,000 points. With so many points, even without having his engineers manufacture weapons, he could directly exchange them for quite impressive gear at the main hub. The thought of potentially encountering enemy forces for plunder every time he entered the battlefield made Su Bai eager to complete the tasks here and return to the main hub space to grow stronger once again. Now was the time for you to show loyalty. The remaining 4 members of the Beihuang team could only turn against their own, leading the charge with their remaining troops to attack the core of the undead stronghold. They aimed to earn redemption. On the icebound plateau, at the frozen throne, Arthas opened his eyes. Defeated? Beside him, the Lich King pinched the air with his bony fingers. The atmosphere solidified, and ice shattered, as if countless vacuums were breaking, bringing forth a tremendous pressure. The attending monks had their life force drained, transforming into a continuous surge of vitality that flowed into him. Amidst the swirling winds, the ground erupted with ice. The icy plains split open, creating a vast glacial canyon, granting Arthas a path for his expedition. He had thought the emergence of the ice dragon would resolve the issue with the outsiders, but it seemed he would have to take matters into his own hands today. With a thought, thousands of demonic troops surged forth, like a tidal wave, once again flooding the battlefield, enveloped in black mist and exuding terrifying auras. They had turned against him. The human race was untrustworthy. Frostmourne swept through, and the land, previously battered by lightning storms, was frozen once more. The defecting members of the Beihuang team were filled with dread. They knew of Arthas's strength, far surpassing that of the heroes from the other three factions. The king was frozen, invincible across the land. Yet, despite this, they could only brace themselves and push forward. For Su Bai's red alert army loomed like a thorn in their backs, suffocating them with pressure. At any moment, they could lose their lives. Everyone took a deep breath. Steeling themselves for the worst, they shouted together, determined to charge ahead. Foolish. The air solidified, and all troops of the Beihuang team were immediately affected by a freezing slowdown. Everyone slowed down. A shadow charged into the fray, and the crowd observed closely, gasping in shock. Arthas had taken the initiative to attack. With a chilling wind, he held Frostmourne, striding across the battlefield, his gaze as cold as ice. The legendary demonic sword unleashed a terrifying chill. With every 10 steps, a life was claimed, and no one could escape its reach. Each time the sword's edge sliced through the air, it left behind a deep, icy mark, the end of life and the prelude to death. Arthas swung his sword, and in an instant, dozens of enemies transformed into ice sculptures, shattering into countless ice crystals. His swordsmanship was like a raging storm, akin to the might of thunder, each strike filled with destructive power. Although the troops of the northern wilderness were diverse and varied in strength, they appeared utterly defenseless in the face of Frostmourne's power. They howled and struggled, yet none could escape the fate of being frozen. In an instant, only Arthas remained on the battlefield, holding Frostmourne, standing amidst a sea of corpses and blood. The leader of the Central Continent team, along with the second and third in command, had already perished trying to intercept Arthas. The captain of the Northern Wilderness team came rolling in fear, kneeling on the ground, pleading while grabbing Su Bai's pant leg. Su Bai merely replied calmly, "First, military orders are like a mountain. You retreated without permission. Doesn't he that deserve punishment? Second, I am not part of the Central Continent team, nor do I know them. I am the captain of the demon team." The captain was immediately shocked, as if he had been struck and frozen by Frostmourne, unable to move. After a while, he suddenly let go, collapsing to the ground, scooting backward with his rear, stuttering as he pointed at Su Bai. You are the legendary most wicked squad in the battlefield of 10,000 realms. The members of the demon team that slaughtered entire races. So that's it. No wonder you can challenge the 4 great races with just one person's strength. Please don't kill me, don't kill me. The little captain was in tears, even losing control of himself. Su Bai was also taken aback, not expecting the demon team's infamous reputation to spread so far. Even other teams in the battlefield of 10,000 realms were terrified. He couldn't help but wonder what shocking deeds the seemingly amiable Captain Zheng Jia had done to instill such fear in others, leading to the team's notorious reputation. Su Bai shook his head. The captain could do as he pleased, as long as he didn't disturb him while leading the Red Alert army to conquer all realms, making all see him as supreme. Su Bai had no desire to engage with Zheng Jia. At this moment, Arthas pointed his sword forward. The enemy troops had been swept away, charging into their base, slaughtering and devouring them. Behind him, the army surged like a tsunami, beginning to attack the defensive lines set up by Su Bai with his Red Alert army. Unfortunately, this tide of enemies could not breach Su Bai's ironclad defense. Instead, as the cooldown time was up, Su Bai cast Rebirth of the Undead, again, resurrecting various fallen undead to reap the lives of the enemy. Rebirth of the Undead? It seemed the opponent had some skill, but in front of me, it was merely an act of showing off. Arthas closed his eyes, swinging his sword straight into the ground. Before him, the corpses of the fallen warriors began to rise again, controlling the dead, rows upon rows, a staggering number exceeding 10,000. The resurrected corpses quickly collided with Su Bai's dead body. On the battlefield, Su Bai's corpse could only passively endure the attacks without retaliating. Manipulating corpses. This was the most powerful ability of Arceus, capable of resurrecting corpses for invincible attacks. Tyrant and Angelina frowned deeply. Tens of thousands of invincible undead warriors, even if the entire alliance mobilized, would still be like lambs to the slaughter. They felt powerless. Otherwise, the undead would have been wiped out by the 2 factions long ago. Watching the invincible enemy corpses slaughtering his own, Su Bai merely said lightly, "Invincible? That's just perfect. I also have invincibility, but I've simply never used it." Chapter 183, Gathering the Apocalypse, the Invincible Iron Curtain, the Strongest Steel Torrent. Invincible? Is it the Paladin's holy armor? A single target invincibility spell? Angelina couldn't help but ask, then shook her head. Even if one could use that move, it wouldn't help. This is single target invincibility, while the opponent has tens of thousands of invincible units. Retreat. Retreat? Su Bai laughed. The word retreat did not exist in his dictionary. He simply smiled and said, "It's time to showcase the real technology." Hundreds of 3-star Apocalypse tanks arranged in a circular formation amidst Su Bai's Stone Sea. Another super weapon had long been ready to launch. It was just that the enemy was too weak and insignificant. Even if it was ready, it would be of no use. But now, it seemed to have a purpose. That is the Soviet defensive super weapon, the Iron Curtain, for the entire Soviet Union. Nuclear weapons were ordinary super weapons. Under that incredible dark red veil, the Soviet Union's iron-blooded lion became unstoppable, an invincible entity. It was such a powerful technology that even the Allied forces dispatched hundreds of spy groups to acquire it. According to the official principles based on Einstein's quantum theory, in a beam of light, different photons move at uneven speeds. When a beam of light passes through a special filter, certain specific photons arrive at their destination faster than others. Based on this principle, an electromagnetic field that is difficult to penetrate around the target can be created. When the energy reaches a certain level, this barrier can last for an hour. This is also the working principle of the Iron Curtain device. Special photoelectric irradiation on a metal surface releases the photoelectric effect, generating ions. These ions also excite surrounding electrons, producing dark red fluorescence. This impact-resistant red fluorescence is the essence of the invincible Iron Curtain. With a flash, hundreds of Tianji tanks, illuminated by the dark red light of the Iron Curtain, appeared dim and dark, as if summoned from hell, exuding an aura of death. The steel torrent arrived as expected, colliding with the tens of thousands of enemy corpses. Those unaware of their fate dared to shake the tree like a mayfly. Arthas looked on coldly, observing the hundreds of Apocalypse tanks that now resembled scrap metal. However, something unexpected happened. Amidst the siege of tens of thousands of troops, the Apocalypse tanks stood firm, like rocks battered repeatedly by giant waves. They remained resilient against the surging tide. Each impact only strengthened their resolve. In the midst of the army, the steadiness of the Apocalypse tanks was akin to Mount Tai. No matter how the enemy ravaged, they remained unyielding, showcasing the immense defensive power of the Iron Curtain. On the contrary, both sides were invincible units. Yet physical friction was inevitable. The powerful engines of the Apocalypse tanks steadily advanced against the swarming enemy troops, sending countless undead units flying. Arthas squinted and murmured, "Invincible, huh?" Then he coldly laughed. "Unfortunately, your little invincible shield, conjured by magic, can only cover 100 units, which is nothing compared to my tens of thousands of undead army." In the eyes of the Death Knight Arthas, Su Bai's slight invincible power was merely a mantis trying to stop a chariot, an amusing sight. Gradually, the hundreds of Apocalypse tanks in the distance ignored the attacks from all troop types. They had only one target, the commander of this undead army, Arthas. Arthas noticed this issue as well. The enemy's invincible units were coming straight for him. Since that was the case, both sides would play a game of exchange. The tide of abominable ghouls and crypt fiends surged forward, these resurrected corpses charging towards Su Bai's base. Su Bai also recognized the problem. The enemy was relying on their invincible units to directly penetrate his base. "Everyone, retreat far away. I will face the strongest knight on the Azeroth continent, Arthas, alone." After saying this, he summoned his dragon-slaying sword. With an imposing demeanor, a sense of grand ambition and blood-stained battlefield aura immediately emanated. "Dear, you must be careful. We elves will always support you from the rear. Master, I will always be your loyal companion." As Su Bai watched the reluctant expressions of the three women, he coldly replied, "Just stay clean and wait." The captain of the North Wilderness team, already frightened, observed all of this and felt a pang of jealousy. If the multiverse battlefield team could act with impunity in every world, winning the favor of these true, strong, and gifted individuals was an arduous task. This individual before them had just attacked their base. Did they have Stockholm Syndrome? Why were they all so obedient to him? Boom, boom, boom. The dual cannons fired simultaneously, and the damage from the Samsung tanks doubled. Arthas' ice armor shattered instantly, and his health dropped by half. The enemy's elite troops are so powerful. At this moment, he couldn't help but admire Su Bai's strength. However, at the same time, a smile crept onto Alsace's lips. Because thousands of troops had completely surrounded Su Bai. No matter how powerful he was, he couldn't escape from this net. All undead. Kill him. Countless undead surged forward. Yet, amidst this overwhelming encirclement, Su Bai activated the invisibility skill of the magic ring in his hand. All attacks missed their target. Alsace was taken aback. He hadn't expected his opponent to have such a trick, and he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of old blood. This guy, from a distance, looked righteous and determined to fight to the end. But when the army arrived, he immediately activated invisibility to escape. What a despicable person. Was that the Sword Saint's Gale Step? He cursed inwardly, regretting not buying an anti-invisibility item before heading out. How infuriating, letting this guy get away. Now, trying to buy an anti-invisibility item was already too late. More than 10 artillery shells came crashing down simultaneously. The ground shook and the earth shattered. Alsace was completely hit by the shells, and he was engulfed in a mushroom cloud of explosions. This was a terrifying explosive power. The armor specially crafted by the undead shattered instantly. His body was blown to pieces, black blood splattering everywhere, with chunks of flesh flying around. One of the shells directly struck Alsace's head, separating it from his body. The shell, with the head still attached to the spine, flew several hundred meters before exploding. Fragments of bone scattered across the ground. Just as Alsace was annihilated, the thousands of invincible corpses he controlled also exploded instantly, turning into pools of blood on the battlefield. In the aftermath of the explosion, Subai emerged from the smoke, casually pulling out Frostmourne, which had been knocked into a crevice by the shockwave. A chill of energy seeped into Subai's body. Chapter 184. Does Frostmourne corrupt the heart? With Yuri X around, he feared nothing. Item name: Frostmourne Relic, Ice Attribute Attack. Attack Power, 200,600. Special Skills, Freeze Defense. Bloodthirsty Transformation. Skill Notes. Holding this sword will increase the entire army's ice resistance by 1,000 damage. Skill Notes. Using this sword will subject the user to the Lich King's temptation, transforming their mindset at a rate of 1 per hour. When the progress reaches 100, the user will lose their humanity and become a puppet of the Lich King, while also gaining the power to control the undead army. This weapon's attack power was on par with Subai's Dragon Slayer. The key was its ice attribute damage, which could also grant the entire army immunity to tons of ice attribute damage. With this weapon, a conventional army could defeat the giant ice dragon they faced before. However, this weapon has a drawback. The wielder will be swayed by the Lich King and become his puppet, but at the same time, it grants tremendous commanding power over the undead. It seems one could control any undead army. If that is the case, wouldn't that mean becoming the second in command of the undead right after the Lich King? If it weren't for this artifact, Subai wouldn't be so conflicted. Yet, with the artifact in hand, Subai wants to command the undead army but also doesn't want to be corrupted and controlled by the enemy's influence. It's a dilemma. A significant dilemma. Corruption control? Corruption control? In an instant, a flash of inspiration struck Subai's mind. Right control. Isn't that what he excels at? With this thought, a slight smile crept onto Subai's lips. The army has fought hard, so it would be better to take a break first. They could head to the stronghold of the other 3 factions, where they could rest and be sheltered by the local forces, ensuring their safety. Takara Sato suggested. Angelina and Tyrande also welcomed the idea. Let us go to Stormwind City. We're all part of the human race and familiar with each other. Why not come to our Night Elf territory? The environment there is beautiful, surrounded by mountains and water, and there are no foul-smelling sewers like those in human cities. Angelina added, frowning slightly. She thought to herself, old cup, letting Subai go over. Can your husband handle that green on top of his head? Clearing her throat, she said, that wouldn't be appropriate. After all, you have your own family. Let's go to Stormwind City. Tyrande was indifferent, gently stroking her white tiger mouth. He wouldn't say anything. After all, this was part of nature's cycle. Guardians of the forest, standing still and calm, full of life. Subai looked at the plump mother white tiger. It was indeed beautiful. He instantly felt a desire to venture into the night forest and explore. However, as a conqueror of worlds, growing stronger and protecting his own realm was a more important duty. Frostmourne was summoned from the storage ring. A cold light flashed, and the air trembled with the sword's wind. If one does not conquer the undead, how can one call it home? This statement was powerful and filled with charisma. However, Angelina was very worried and said excitedly, this cursed sword can corrupt the human soul. Do not use it. Otherwise, you will become the next puppet of the Lich King. No matter how strong and just your heart is, you cannot resist this evil power. Evil? Another copy of Yuri X was summoned from Subai's Sea of Stones. Subai smiled slightly at everyone. When it comes to evil, the Lich King is not even a hair's breadth compared to Yuri X, let alone the radiant female officer beside me. I am from the demon team, known for my ruthless killing abilities. A chilling and deadly aura swept across the arena, silencing everyone. No one expected this sunny, handsome young man to have such a terrifying side, especially the captain of the northern team, who was once again frightened. With a flick of his sword, the entire Red Alert army moved towards the frozen throne of the undead. On the other side, witnessed the power of the demons. The full moon hung in the sky, and a pair of black wings obscured its light. He wielded a pair of blades filled with evil power, each flap of his wings accompanied by a howling that tore through the air. On the ground, countless remnants of fallen soldiers covered the landscape, as if they had stepped into hell. Every member of the demon team felt a sense of impending doom. Once again, they summoned countless troops to confront the man in the sky. The captain of the demon team, Zheng Jia, gazed at the man in the sky who resembled him, narrowing his eyes. Who are you? The man in the sky laughed heartily. Me? Let me tell you, I am the new master of the outer realm. A man born from revenge. Zhao Haoyan. After declaring his name, Zhao Haoyan moved like a ghost, diving down at incredible speed, cutting through groups of enemies in half. At times, he dashed across the ground, sweeping through the battlefield like a fierce wind. His movements were swift and graceful, each step precisely avoiding enemy attacks. While his counterattacks struck like thunder, leaving the demon team commander unable to defend. Several shadows flashed by. 3 commanders of the demon team had no time to escape and were instantly killed by Zhao Haoyan. One of them had his head severed by the enemy's blade, which he held in his hand, playing with it repeatedly. Weak, too weak, he sneered. The members of the demon team were simply too weak. His laughter felt as if it could drag one into hell. Do you know? For so long, I have endured hardships, eliminated Armont, and ruled the entire outer realm. All to find a way back to the Blue Star, where there is a man I must kill. Seeing how powerful his opponent was, Tonggu from the demon team felt his legs go weak and fell to the ground, scrambling backward with his hands. At first, he had eagerly volunteered to let his goblin army take down the first target for points. Little did he expect the enemy to be so strong. Now, it was said he had killed the lord of the outer realm, Armont. That was a being even the Abyss Lord feared. However, the captain of the demon team showed no fear. He took a slow step forward, standing tall and meeting his opponent's gaze. Calmly, he said, "No matter who the man you want to kill is, right now, you are the one who will be killed by me." Zhao Haoyan laughed instead. You? You dare to speak to me like that? Suddenly, the air became hot, as if it had been scorched to 100 degrees. With a loud boom, flames erupted around, reaching kilometers high. Sacrifice. Devour them. The flames seemed to have a consciousness of their own, rushing towards Zheng Jia and his companions. At the same time, Zheng Jia let out a roar, Inferno. A massive black fire spread around him, charging into the opposing sea of flames. The 2 vast infernos collided violently, turning the ground to charcoal in an instant. Countless creatures vaporized. Even the sand on the ground was burned into crystal-clear glass. This showcased the earth-shattering nature of their battle. Chapter 185. Ice damage to the giant dragon? Sorry, my entire army is immune to freezing damage. Respected Lich King. The human known as Su Bai has killed Arthas and seized Frostmourne. He has now united with 3 other races to attack us. Without Arthas, the Lich King, the supreme frozen throne has returned to his hands. It's a pity that such a powerful puppet has died so easily. But he is not worried. How is the construction of the burial ground going? The attendant reported, 50 have been constructed. Hearing this, the Lich King was very satisfied. Previously, Arthas summoned a frost giant dragon, which took a long time to deal with. This time, however, he could summon 50 frost giant dragons at once. It could be said that their combat power had increased by 50-100. What could he use to fight against himself? Very well. Let these ice dragons take care of that detestable human. Brother, I've cleared the Murloc tribe. I'm done here too. I don't know if Su Bai is out of his mind trying to fight the Naga, but who cares? We've completed the task assigned by the captain. When they return, there will be a place to rest the troops. Yeah, I find that Zheng Jia quite intimidating. It feels like he has killed billions of people just from the look in his eyes. The 2 newcomers who came with Su Bai each completed their own minor tasks and returned to their original positions, each bringing along hundreds of conquered race soldiers as their achievements. They wore proud expressions. However, not long after, Su Bai had already mobilized the armies of the 3 major races, coordinating with the Red Alert army to attack the last of the undead. This vast army instantly frightened the 3 into hiding. It wasn't until they saw Su Bai's hero Boris that they breathed a sigh of relief. But in the next moment, as if realizing something, they were shocked again. These troops were helping Su Bai attack the undead? How did he manage to orchestrate such a collaboration among the 3 major races? No, the 3 major races were being supported by Su Bai's Red Alert army. Park Etienne shook his head in denial, a look of shock appearing on his face. Could it be that Su Bai had taken control of these 3 major races, and that these soldiers were Su Bai's vassals? Thinking of this, he rushed to catch up with Su Bai's main force to get to the bottom of the matter. Hey, why are you running? Wait for me. On the battlefield, the last frozen highland had been breached. Countless large tombs were destroyed, and the haunted gold mine was turned into a resource for slave mining. The ground was littered with the corpses of the undead. Yet, Su Bai's Red Alert army did not engage. He merely tore a huge gap in the enemy's lines with the power in his hands, allowing the 3 races to surge in and freely harvest the lives of the defeated undead soldiers. Such destructive power. Park Etienne, who had rushed over to confirm what was happening, felt his legs weaken and knelt down behind a large stone. A huge thought kept swelling in his mind. Could it be that Su Bai had really become the king of the 3 races, now controlling the greatest force in the entire realm and annihilating the undead, becoming the true overlord of this world. Another member of the demon team who had followed was a woman under 30, with golden hair and fiery red lips. Clad in a blue tactical suit that could hardly contain her imposing figure. Subai is so strong. I should have actively flirted with him back then, letting him control my mind. Although I lost this body, I would have become stronger like that Sato Takara. Park Etienne felt frustrated. After arriving at the battlefield, he had wanted to develop a relationship with the woman named Lizette Hanley in front of him. But seeing her admiration for Subai made him feel the same helplessness he felt towards that man, Takatani. In fact, Subai had long been aware of their presence. But such minor matters did not concern him. Facing the last struggles of the undead, Subai easily commanded his troops, dismantling several outer fortress bases of the enemy and cutting off their last escape route, surrounding them completely. After defeating the Lich King and controlling the undead army, the four races would submit, and they would dominate the realm. Just then, the air grew cold again. Warm breath billowed out as he looked into the distance. Groups of frost dragons unleashed a gas that could freeze everything, encasing tens of thousands of the three races' forces in ice. Angelina and Tyrant were taken aback. They had not expected the undead to have such a powerful trump card, such a formidable enemy. Even the strongest aerial forces of the Chimeras and Storm Griffins were helpless against this. After all, this was the frozen highland. Neither of the two races could withstand such cold temperatures. Thus, it was also the main battlefield for the undead. They were fearless. On the other hand, Subai burst into loud laughter. The cold is unleashed. With Frostmourne in hand, the entire army is immune to 1,000 points of freezing damage. Facing the multifunctional infantry vehicles, air defense tracked vehicles, apocalypse tanks, and Gatling motorcycles ahead, all air defense forces shouted, with the sword in hand, "Follow me. Kill." Boom. The air defense troops unleashed incredible power. Unafraid of the freezing cold, the powerful freezing ability of the ice dragon blasted onto these armored vehicles, proving utterly ineffective. Meanwhile, various air defense units fired back relentlessly into the sky. Boom, boom, boom. Rat-a-tat-tat. Compared to the roars of the dragon above, the thunderous sounds created by the firepower on the ground were even more earth-shattering, shaking the surroundings. The ice dragon howled. The tragic wails sounded like the cries of ghosts and wolves, turning into bone dust, falling from the sky along with the snow. Watching the strongest combat force of the undead tribe vanish into nothingness, the Lich King trembled, unable to believe how the enemy was unaffected by such powerful freezing damage. These 50 ice dragons were summoned at the cost of 500,000 lives. So many summoned, now wasted. Find out what's going on. In less than a day, the enemy had learned freezing immunity. The 50 sacrificed acolytes had turned into invisible shadows, disappearing without a trace, heading towards Subai's formation to gather intelligence. But what the Lich King didn't know was that his large fortress had already been infiltrated by Subai's spies. This news quickly reached Subai's ears. Angelina said, "I brought some powder that can detect invisible units. Just sprinkle it in the room, and it will last for 40 minutes. Even the enemy's shadow units will immediately become visible around us." Subai suddenly pushed her down. Angelina's face turned red instantly. Her eyes wandered, and her chest rose and fell rapidly. She whispered, "There are so many people in the big tent," declaring this in broad daylight. "It's two." Angelina was open-minded, but not to that extent. She still understood the concept of shame. Chapter 186. Is the target of the evil hypnosis Yuri? It seems you've targeted the wrong person. However, Subai only took her headscarf off her shoulder and didn't continue to act against her. He just had the mobilized soldiers bring in a bunch of dogs. Good dogs. Good dogs, smell this." The dogs rushed forward, drooling and continuously sniffing Angelina's headscarf, even leaving drool on it. "What is this about?" Subai shooed the dogs away and then replied, "Don't worry. Even if we have a party here, no matter how many spies the Lich King sends out, they can't watch the live broadcast." Everyone was confused. Subai was too lazy to explain. "It's quite simple. Let the dog get familiar with the sense of the important figures in this place. Then, they can spread out around the main tent. If the shadows mentioned by the other party really come to eavesdrop, their sense will definitely not match those of the surroundings. The distinct sense of those individuals will be easily detected by the dog. At that time, the dog will take a bite and see what the essence of the undead truly tastes like." As midnight approached, shadows moved within the tent, causing even the tent to sway. Angelina, Thaland, and Takara Sato were not allowed to leave the tent by Subai, so as not to distract the dogs and to ensure that the situation and intelligence here were not clearly grasped by the other side. The four of them, feeling bored, could only play the simplest of games. In contrast to the bored four, the dogs outside were rather excited throughout the night. They managed to kill over 40 shadows sent out to gather information. The leak of intelligence was effectively resolved. The three women emerged from the main tent, holding their waists and panting, finally able to get some well-deserved rest. However, amidst the chaos, a few shadows managed to escape and learned about Su Bai's situation. It turned out that he had used Frostmourne to enhance his troops' immunity to freezing. A twisted smile, more grotesque than death itself, finally appeared on the Lich King's withered face. He calculated that dozens of hours had passed. Su Bai, that human powerhouse, would soon be ensnared by the cursed sword and become his puppet. He sensed the aura of Frostmourne and confirmed that someone was constantly manipulating the sword, pouring their consciousness into it. The cursed sword became a medium, accelerating Su Bai's descent into darkness. You, great master of the undead, I am the Lich King, your devoted servant. Promise me to become a part of the undead, and you will possess the power of the entire undead legion. A series of captivating voices echoed through the cursed sword into the other's mind. With this method, he could accelerate control over the target, turning them into his puppet. The Lich King was thrilled. To control such a powerful individual like Su Bai meant he could dominate all of Azeroth. Unexpectedly, despite countless plans and a prolonged war, he had never been able to conquer Azeroth. Now, out of nowhere, a young human had emerged, ready to rewrite history. Thinking of this, the Lich King intensified the alluring power he wielded. In his mind, the image of the young man gradually took shape: a round head, a melon-shaped hairstyle, an expressionless poker face, and those eyes that could captivate the heart. Wait, something seems off. This image does not match the Su Bai he had come to know at all. The Lich King took a deep breath. Who are you? The other party communicated with him through telepathy, conveying a voice. I am Yuri. Tell me your intentions. The voice was magnetic and deep, as if a magical force was washing over the Lich King's mind. You are not Su Bai. Of course not. Su Bai is my revered commander. After the initial surprise, the cold Lich King returned to his poker face. Since the other party claimed that Su Bai was his commander, and Su Bai had allowed him to wield this sword, it proved that the two were quite close. In that case, he could manipulate this person named Yuri, bringing him under his control, to use Frostmourne to assassinate Su Bai. That seemed like a method. I am the Lich King. I can grant you endless power. Fall into the undead, and you will gain eternal life. I am Yuri. I can give you boundless faith. Become a glorious soldier of the Soviet army, and you will obtain belief. A powerful wave of psychic energy surged into the Lich King's mind through the magic sword. His mind was immediately flooded with images of red formations, AKs, iron torrents, defending the homeland, and various other scenes. What the hell? The Lich King nearly spat out blood. He quickly severed the communication with the magic sword. The other party could also perform mental magic attacks. Fortunately, he possessed strong mental force and intelligence. Otherwise, he would have fallen into the other party's trap. The feeling of being mentally controlled was worse than anything he had ever experienced. As the Lich King regained his composure, he couldn't help but be astonished again. Even his icy demeanor was drenched in cold sweat. The strength of the mental manipulation on the other side was terrifying. With a loud rumble, the city had completely fallen. Su Bai's Red Alert army stormed into the city, rampantly plundering resources and hunting down the undead soldiers. There was no choice. After all, they had refused to surrender initially. A wave of icy breath surged forth, shattering the gates outside the frozen throne in an instant. Su Bai stepped in on the glaciers, holding Frostmourne. The shining bald head in his mind also made a grand entrance. Yuri, the Lich King quickly calmed down. He sincerely bowed. Great Su Bai, as you take your seat on this frozen throne, the entire Azeroth will crown you as king. Now, the Lich King could only lower his head in submission to Su Bai, as long as the other party was willing to ally with him. The evil power could still corrupt him, slowly drawing him into the ranks of the undead. Su Bai did not hold back. Since he had completely conquered the entire Azeroth, it was only right for him to become their king. Thus, without further thought, he boldly took his seat on the frozen throne. Following that, the Lich King personally crowned him. A special masked crown was placed upon him. The Lich King was filled with joy. The crown possesses a seductive power. The opponent was completely unprepared, just waiting for an evil force to erode his mind and turn him into a puppet. With a loud bang, the crown exploded. Su Bai curled his lips. What a useless piece of equipment, yet it still refused to yield its treasure. The Lich King was stunned in fear. Even such an evil crown mask was shattered by him. This meant that the evil power radiating from the opponent far exceeded that of his own undead race. Unable to help it, the Lich King swallowed hard. How many people have you killed? I can't remember, but soon there will be one more life. After saying that, he slashed down with his sword. The Lich King was completely dead, unable to resurrect. A ghostly power entered Frostmourne. Killing the Lich King with this sword was what Angelina had told him. If other weapons were used, even if the opponent was killed, they would resurrect infinitely. Only this sword could completely sever the Lich King's life and fate. Chapter 187. The Sword of Magic Evolution, Strengthening Power, Icebound for thousands of miles. Commanding the undead, item name, True Frostmourne, Relic, Ice Attribute Attack. Attack power, 800, 8000. Special skills. Icebound defense. Command the undead. Freeze all. Subai was taken aback. The power of the defeated Lich King entered Frostmourne, actually enhancing the sword. Not only did the attack power increase nearly tenfold, but the previous negative buff also disappeared. Instead, two new skills were added. One was Command the Undead, and the other was Freeze All. Upon examining the skill descriptions closely, skill, wielding this sword. All undead in Azeroth await your command. Skill, activating this skill releases a powerful freezing chill, freezing hundreds of miles. Freezing hundreds of miles? It didn't seem very useful. If this skill were activated, it would freeze both enemies and allies alike. Wouldn't that be a double-edged sword? However, being able to command the entire undead race would be very useful throughout Azeroth. Sure enough, Subai simply raised his sword. All remaining living undead instantly knelt down and bowed to Subai. Meanwhile, all previously hostile buildings on the map had also become Subai's property. However, there was one drawback. Many of the existing buildings had been nearly destroyed by the previous war. Numerous structures were aflame, poised to collapse at any moment. A dark elf, transformed into an undead, rushed over with a bow and arrow. He was quickly stopped by the mobilized troops. The opponent disarmed. The dark elf knelt down. Master, thank you for ruling over the undead. The curse that controlled me has been lifted. I am willing to go through fire and water for you, without hesitation. Who are you? I was once a night elf, controlled by the undead, becoming one of their enforcers, known as the Dark Ranger, Sylvanas. This undead looks completely different from others. Although a bit dark, there is a lot of charm. Quite appealing, especially compared to others. It certainly has its unique flavor. What if I can't see when the lights are off at night? What do you mean? It's nothing. I was just asking how to repair those buildings. It needs to be slowly repaired by the monks, probably taking about 10 days. Within half a month, it should be mostly restored. That's still too slow. This is already the fastest speed. Subai smiled. Poor natives of the magical world, who have no understanding of the power of technology. How about this? Do you believe I can repair the buildings that need fixing in 10 days within an hour? The other party shook their head. That's very difficult to achieve. Why don't we make a bet? But master, what can I bet with you? How about betting my strong bow in hand? A barely noticeable smile returned to Subai's lips. Let's bet on it, of course. The Dark Ranger is bound to lose. Dozens of engineers were summoned. They quickly restored the buildings to brand new condition. This is the power of the versatile beings. Boom. In the sky, the momentum of Zheng Jia and Zhao Haoyan clashed against each other. The surrounding sky was enveloped by their fiery breath. The entire world was immersed in a feast of flames. The surrounding space began to distort, as if the stars were trembling. The figures of the two flickered amidst the sea of fire, each attack accompanied by earth-shattering roars. They fought countless rounds like this. With a loud bang, Zheng Jia fell from the sky. Captain, Tonggu rushed forward. There he saw the demon squad leader Zheng Jia, his body burned by fierce flames. And his own protective fire had long since vanished. It was clear that the man who defeated Aramon was stronger than the strongest demon squad leader in the battlefield of all realms. It could be said that their battle had reached the level of super weapons. You go quickly, inform Subai and the others to hide. I will hold on. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the captain was still thinking about Subai and the others. Tonggu's fists were clenched tightly. Zhao Haoyan landed on the ground with a smile. It turns out the opponent does have some strength. This might be the strongest adversary he has encountered. Unfortunately, he obtained this power too late. Otherwise, the man he hated for a lifetime would have long turned to gas. There was no chance to kill that man now. Captain, it's about time to stop mentioning that worthless individual. I can sense that he is different from us, even though we are all villains and demons. Yet, he possesses a special light within his heart that I can feel. At this point, the captain is still speaking up for him. Tonggu really wants to kill him right away, but unfortunately, he lacks the strength to do so. However, their conversation reached Zhao Haoyan's ears. Zhao Haoyan's pupils suddenly contracted. He instinctively took 2 steps back, taking a while to regain his composure. A feeling of panic arose within him. It's impossible. He has become so strong. How could he still feel fear at the mention of that name? What does the person you mentioned look like? Upon regaining his composure, Zhao Haoyan instantly spread his fiery wings. Tonggu's legs went weak like noodles. He then involuntarily described the appearance of the individual. What? He actually entered the battlefield of all realms. The heavens have eyes. They have given me another chance to kill him. Tonggu realized how much the other party loathed that person, though he couldn't quite grasp the situation. However, he saw a glimmer of hope for survival. With a swift motion, Tonggu struck, catching Zheng Jia off guard, leaving a deep wound on his chest. Zheng Jia became drenched in blood. I'll kill you. And then we'll settle the score? The sudden betrayal from the followers shocked Zhao Haoyan. But then he laughed. Very much like his former self, ruthless, vicious, and shameless. Good, kill him. Bring me to that person. I'll spare you. Zheng Jia covered his wound, glaring at the traitor. You actually chose to betray us. With the last of his strength, he cast a fire wall, blocking Tonggu, and retreated at high speed. Zhao Haoyan's master, Zheng Jia, must be seeking help from him. As long as we catch up to him, we can find him. Huh. Above the spy satellite, Zheng Jia was moving closer to him. Behind him, countless troops were in pursuit. Is the battle ahead unfavorable? Could that individual be too powerful? With a wave of his hand, he sent hundreds of flying soldiers for support. Finally, they brought Zheng Jia back. This guy is really injured badly. Tonggu has betrayed us. We need to find a way to hide. He smiled. Now, he dominates the entire realm. He was just worried about not having a new boss to fight. Since the captain took the initiative to provide a boss, he was not polite and chose the nuclear missile silo in the Stone Sea. Chapter 188. With the sound of the nuclear missile, sorry, but your skills are all countered. A nuclear missile erupted from the silo, cutting through the night sky. With a blinding flash of white light, the nuclear bomb accurately descended into the midst of Zhao Haoyan's million-strong army. Immediately afterward, a deafening explosion resonated, as if the very heavens were trembling at that moment. At the instant of the explosion, a massive fireball surged upward, engulfing everything around it. The fireball expanded continuously, eventually transforming into a gigantic mushroom cloud that shot up into the sky. Under the illumination of the flames, the surrounding sky turned an eerie orange-red, with the entire battlefield enveloped in a sea of fire. Within the explosion's radius, over 300,000 of Zhao Haoyan's troops were instantly consumed by the high temperature and shockwave. Their bodies vaporized in an instant, leaving not a trace behind. The shockwave rapidly surged toward Zhao Haoyan's formation. Zhao Haoyan remained expressionless. Faced with such a powerful superweapon, he was completely unfazed. He soared high into the air, his demonic wings unfurling. A powerful blaze surged forward, colliding with the approaching shockwave. The two forces pushed against each other, and the intense friction made the entire battlefield even hotter. Soon after, Zhao Haoyan increased his power, swiftly dissipating the shockwave caused by the nuclear explosion. In the rear, Tonggu was so frightened by the sight that he immediately used an earth shield to burrow underground. What kind of power was this? Was that massive white fireball earlier a display of Su Bai's strength? It was truly overwhelming. With this thought, a wave of fear washed over Tonggu, making him shiver involuntarily. Thankfully, when he confronted the opponent, he hadn't tried to show off too much. Otherwise, he would have been dead by now. However, compared to Su Bai's formidable power, the strength of Zhao Haoyan before him was even greater. Not only had he defeated the strongest Captain Zheng Jia in the battlefield of all realms, but he could also dissipate that earlier force. With this in mind, Tonggu felt a bit lucky. It was fortunate that he had defected early. As long as he survived and returned to the main god space, he would become the new leader of the Demon Squad. The leader of the Demon Squad holds the power to determine the fate of a nation or even a planet with just a thought. After the radioactive dust settled, some surviving enemies, although having escaped the initial explosion, could not evade the onslaught of radiation. Their skin began to decay, hair fell out, and their bodies gradually weakened. In despair and agony, they ultimately succumbed to death, turning into puddles of green water. At the same time, the four major races of Azeroth charged forward, attacking the remaining hundreds of thousands of Zhao Haoyan's army. The strength displayed by Su Bai just now shocked all the heroes present. With such a person around, what external enemy could possibly contend with him? Unfortunately, everyone was brimming with confidence. Only Su Bai frowned. Aramond indeed had some skills, managing to withstand nuclear weapons. Now, regarding the superweapons, Su Bai still had mind control, genetic mutation, and time-space teleportation, 3 of which had not been used. As for the nuclear bombs and lightning storms, they were already in cooldown. Which one to use first? Su Bai pondered for a moment. He decided to meet Amonred first and deal with whatever came next. When he reached the top of the city wall, he saw a flying demon in the sky looking down at the crowd. On the ground, demons from other realms and the 4 major races were fiercely contesting for territory, with shouts and the clash of iron resounding in the air. In the sky, Zhao Haoyan immediately spotted the man he despised the most. Su Bai! Su Bai! Su Bai! He roared, his eyes blazing with fury. You are Amonred? Su Bai narrowed his eyes slightly. Zhao Haoyan struggled to catch his breath and then burst into laughter. Ha! I didn't even know. You don't recognize me? I'm the blue sky demon in your nightmares. Brother Tian, do you remember me now? Finally remembered? Su Bai shook his head, having no recollection. He had never befriended any demons from the outer realm, except for that person from a certain country who had been transformed into a demon guard by him. No impression at all. Zhao Haoyan felt choked again, becoming increasingly frustrated. Now that he was so strong, he had hoped to show off before his opponent's impending death. But unexpectedly, the other party didn't even recognize him. All right, I'll make sure you understand before you die. I am Zhao Haoyan. Zhao Haoyan. No impression at all. Su Bai responded. You've got to be kidding. You don't remember me? Your class leader. The one who always wanted to kill you. Only then did Su Bai recall. This guy had been turned into a level 1 cripple and thrown into the outer realm by him. Surprising, isn't it? Confusing, right? I should have died. How did I come back in such a perfect form and become so powerful? Let me tell you. It turned out that Zhao Haoyan had his 5 limbs broken by Su Bai's browning and was left to die. What he didn't expect was that a remnant soul of Gul'dan, killed by him, was wandering around, looking for a body to possess. It ended up encountering Zhao Haoyan, who was barely alive. But Gul'dan didn't know that Zhao Haoyan possessed a vast stone sea. Once the remnant soul entered his Dantian stone sea, it was devoured by countless ogres, transforming into his power. When all the teams returned to the human world, Aramond personally led an army to the scene. Looking at the devastated outer realm, he gritted his teeth. However, he also encountered the resurrected Zhao Haoyan, a man exuding evil and possessing great intelligence. The foundation is solid, and with nurturing, he might become a significant figure in the future. Thus, Zhao Haoyan was taken as an adopted son. Following him, he continuously trained. As a result, Zhao Haoyan absorbed countless dark powers, and his body underwent tremendous changes. His skin turned a deep purple, and a pair of demonic wings sprouted from his back. He even grew devilish horns on his head and could summon powerful flames. Ultimately, in pursuit of even greater strength, he eliminated his adoptive father, Aramond. Now, Zhao Haoyan is an outer god in the foreign realm. Despite hearing Zhao Haoyan's description, Su Bai felt no fear at all. This left Zhao Haoyan's attempts at intimidation unfulfilled. In any case, today, our paths cross again. It's the heavens giving me a chance to kill you. Sacrifice. Above the sky, a wall of fire emerged, flowing like a giant dragon. Severely injured, Zheng Jia shouted in alarm. Amidst the raging flames, even the captain of the demon squad couldn't defeat Zhao Haoyan and was instead gravely wounded by him. Su Bai himself received no enhancement from the main deity and couldn't withstand this wave of flames. But unexpectedly, Su Bai drew out Frostmourne. The chilling power surged forth, gathering into a freezing current that collided violently with the opposing scorching flames. Chapter 189. The small ones are born to fill the lines. Their deaths are not regrettable. This intense, seemingly world-destroying heat collided with an equally destructive, bone-chilling cold wave. The two forces intertwined, releasing unparalleled energy fluctuations, resembling the most brilliant star explosions in the universe. In an instant, massive and terrifying thunderclouds began to form, roaring through the sky like ferocious beasts. Subsequently, heavy rain poured down from the clouds, as if the Milky Way was spilling over, submerging the entire world, accompanied by deafening thunder and lightning. The world fell into chaos and confusion. At this moment, the once powerful Zhao Haoyan found himself unable to retaliate against Su Bai. Zheng Jia, lying on the ground, coughed up blood, his eyes wide open in disbelief as he stared at the unfolding scene. He saw Su Bai holding a sword radiating endless cold, Frostmourne. This sword is the most powerful undead artifact on the continent. It has created countless glorious achievements throughout history. Now, has it fallen into Su Bai's hands? Could it be that Su Bai has conquered and ruled the entire continent? Has he truly become the rightful king capable of determining the fate of this mysterious land? A wave of unprecedented shock surged through Zheng Jia's heart, making it almost impossible for him to breathe. Damn it! Zhao Haoyan was furious, his anger burning fiercely within him. He looked incredulously at his opponent, Su Bai, knowing that his current strength had far surpassed that of the other, yet this guy still had hidden tricks up his sleeve. Su Bai, wielding the ice sword, effortlessly blocked the raging flames he had unleashed, capable of melting everything. Zhao Haoyan realized the gravity of the situation. If he were to cancel the sacrificial state at this moment, the opponent's freezing power would surely take advantage of the opportunity, completely freezing his demonic army. Even worse, if these demons couldn't be fully frozen, merely slowing them down would instantly reverse the favorable situation on the battlefield, tilting it towards Su Bai. Thinking of this, Zhao Haoyan gritted his teeth and made a firm decision. This sacrificial state absolutely must not stop. No matter what, he had to hold on. If I can't burn you to ashes, then let my army from the outer realm trample you into dust. Zhao Haoyan waved his hand aggressively, beginning to command his fearsome demonic army to charge towards Su Bai like a surging torrent. Zhao Haoyan was no longer the same as before. The power he wielded was unfathomable. His soldiers were all elite warriors from the outer realm. These demonic guards had an astonishing 100,000 health points, a terrifying amount that far exceeded any unit in Su Bai's hands. At this moment, Zhao Haoyan's face beamed with confidence, wearing a smile akin to that of a returning Dragon King. In his eyes, this battle was destined to be a crushing victory, both in terms of his own strength and the might of his formidable troops. Even if Su Bai held a powerful weapon, it wouldn't change this predetermined fate. Through a detailed analysis of the intelligence gathered, it could be concluded that Su Bai's powerful attack had a limitation on usage, able to be executed only once. To use such a skill again, he would have to endure a long and torturous cooldown period. However, the reality was cruel. Su Bai had no chances left. He was destined to become a victim of my blade. All demonic guards, heed my command. Full attack. With a roar, I issued the order for a general offensive. One by one, the massive demonic guards, wielding flaming blades, charged forward against Su Bai's firepower, rushing in succession. They surged like a torrent, moving at an astonishing speed toward the enormous and mighty gray bear tank. The flames on their blades flickered with intense light as they swung wildly, as if to tear everything before them apart. Each strike carried with it boundless might and power. After just a few strikes, the seemingly indestructible newspaper shell shattered instantly. The first line of defense, meticulously arranged by Su Bai, was easily breached by the enemy. However, he merely stood there quietly, watching everything with cold indifference. His face betraying no hint of emotion, making it impossible to guess his true thoughts at that moment. Warriors of the Empire, charge with all your might. With a roar, Su Bai issued the command. 500 warriors of the Empire unsheathed their energy swords without hesitation, their eyes filled with determination and resolve. Accompanied by fervent shouts, they charged headlong into the vast camp of the enemy's demonic guards. In an instant, the battlefield erupted into a breathtaking clash of blades and swords. The fiery blades collided with the energy swords, producing a crisp and piercing sound. Each encounter sparked flames, as if the entire world had been ignited. Both sides fought fiercely, putting all their strength into the life-and-death struggle. Their movements were agile and swift, each move infused with boundless power and skill. In this intense confrontation, neither side was willing to retreat even a single step, fighting for their beliefs and honor. With the clash of technology and magic, a tremendous roar echoed as a fiery blade came crashing down. The agile warrior of the Empire deftly dodged with a graceful roll, easily evading the strike. "Skyward, Swordmaster. Dragon Flash," he called out, leaping into the air, his sword shimmering like a dazzling light as he lunged at the demonic guard. In an instant, the air was filled with sword energy, glinting coldly, as the Empire warrior attacked with the ferocity of a fierce falcon. His movements were lightning fast, and his swordsmanship was exquisite, each strike carrying unparalleled might. The demonic guard was caught off guard by this sudden onslaught, desperately swinging its weapon in an attempt to fend off the Empire warrior's attacks. However, the Empire warrior's sword technique was so formidable that he landed multiple hits in a short time, knocking down the demonic guard's massive health points by over 1,000. This fierce battle left everyone around in shock. No one expected that this seemingly small and frail Empire warrior possessed such astounding strength and combat skills. In the sky, Zhao Haoyan maintained his sacrificial state, his face filled with disdain and scorn. Humph, they think they can turn the tide of battle with just a bunch of monkeys. Su Bai is really getting weaker and weaker. With a furious shout, Zhao Haoyan commanded the nearby demonic guards to attack. Demonic guards, unleash war tread. The massive demonic guard, upon hearing this, immediately abandoned its pursuit of the Empire warriors and turned to face these overconfident opponents. Upon witnessing this scene, 5 or 6 warriors from the Empire felt a surge of excitement in their hearts, believing it was a perfect opportunity to counterattack. Without hesitation, they raised their energy swords. Their tips pointed straight at the demon guards and charged forward like lightning. However, at that very moment, something unexpected happened. The demon guard suddenly revealed an extremely sinister smile, as if it had anticipated everything. Immediately afterward, a deafening sound erupted, causing the entire ground to tremble. With this sound, a violent earthquake erupted. The once fierce Empire warriors found themselves unable to maintain their footing, falling to the ground and succumbing to extreme dizziness. Undoubtedly, this was a powerful skill possessed by the demon guard, War Tread. It could render nearby enemies dizzy and immobile, stripping them of their combat capability. In that moment, these dizzy warriors from the Empire were like lambs to the slaughter, easily cut down by the demon guards without mercy. Each demon guard acted like a cold executioner, slowly reaping these unfortunate lives. In an instant, of the 500 Empire warriors dispatched by Su Bai, fewer than 200 remained. The battlefield was suffused with a strong metallic scent of blood, and the shadow of death loomed over every corner. However, in the face of such a dire situation, Su Bai showed no expression. He seemed indifferent to the tactical defeat and the loss of personnel, as if all of this was inconsequential to him. His voice came coldly. Continue to send tank killer infantry from the Rising Sun Empire to fill the gaps. It was as if the lives of those soldiers were mere pawns to be discarded at will in his eyes. 300 tank killer infantry shouted Su Bai's name. Su Bai, on board. Recklessly, they filled the gaps left by the Empire warriors. Newcomer Lizette Hanley stared wide-eyed in disbelief at the one-sided battle unfolding before her, her hands trembling uncontrollably. Holding the weakest troops, she was filled with despair and helplessness. Who would have thought that they would have to use these fragile soldiers to confront the demon guards with a terrifying health pool of 100,000? This method of fighting was simply unfathomable. Subai, this young commander, clearly knew nothing of military strategy. How could he be so foolish as to waste his troops? Lizette Hanley was frantic. She wanted to rush forward immediately to persuade Subai to stop this madness. However, she knew she was just a newcomer with insufficient authority. As she watched Subai relentlessly push all his forces forward, her heart was filled with conflict and struggle. They should stabilize the current front line and then set up multiple defensive lines in the rear, fighting while retreating. Only in this way can those demon guards be effectively worn down. This is the correct strategic approach. After all, Lizette Hanley, the top female commander from the parallel Blue Star's Napoleonic Empire, has an in-depth understanding and mastery of the art of war. The tactical strategies she knows are countless, much like the character Wang Yuyin from the martial arts world. At this moment, she desperately wanted to share her thoughts with Subai. However, when she saw Subai's face, which was even colder than the sky, the words that almost escaped her lips were swallowed back down. Meanwhile, Subai also noticed that Lizette Hanley was trembling involuntarily beside him. Without hesitation, he reached out and pulled her tightly into his embrace, displaying a confident smile. What? Are you scared? Subai observed the changing expressions on her face, his lips curling into a teasing smile. No, she bit her lip, a hint of determination flashing in her eyes. I've faced countless adversities. How could I be afraid of you? It's just that your mindless strategy is merely a waste of manpower. As she spoke, Lizette Hanley's voice unconsciously lowered. However, Subai didn't take her words to heart. He gently pinched her delicate face with his fingers, savoring the soft touch, and his smile grew even brighter. Now is not the time for this. To win, or at least to hold our ground, we should first establish 2 temporary bases in advantageous positions, watching over each other while the entire force retreats to set up 10 defensive lines. Lizette began to elaborate on the strategy. Subai found it tedious and kissed her abruptly. Lizette's pupils suddenly contracted, startled by Subai's unexpected kiss. Her flow of military tactics came to an abrupt halt. This scene, reflected in the sky, only fueled Zhao Haoyan's rage, which had already reached a boiling point, instantly increasing his anger level by 200. Damn Subai, why is it that every time I encounter this guy, he is always surrounded by a group of beautiful women? And these women obey him, without question. This only stoked the flames of Zhao Haoyan's fury. He couldn't help but glance down at himself. Regretting that the last time Gul'dan possessed him, he had been left bloodied, especially with his 5th limb bleeding profusely, which made him appear like a woman in her time of the month. When revived, all his wounds healed except for his IKUN. So now, Zhao Haoyan was in perfect condition, but he had one embarrassing secret. Lizette Hanley pushed Subai away, her face flushed. Kissing me 1T solved the problem. If it could, I'd let you kiss me 100 or 1,000 times. Subai smiled and said, really? This is not the time for jokes. He nodded, knowing that all the cannon fodder from the Rising Sun Empire had already been filled in with Zhao Haoyan's powerful demon guards. There were nearly tens of thousands on the battlefield. He could use another super weapon from his Stone Sea, which was the gene mutator that had been ready for action. Chapter 190. Your troops are strong, but they are mine now. The gene mutator is a super weapon of the Yuri faction. It can mutate the genes of all living beings within its range, turning them into powerful warriors of their side, frenzied beasts. Now, Subai was about to deploy it on the battlefield, letting it showcase the power of a super weapon from the Yuri faction. In the sky, Zhao Haoyan watched Subai's triumphant expression and the faltering front lines. His heart surged with hatred, which could only be vented through words. Attack! The troops behind must keep up. All-out attack. We can't afford to pause for a moment. Previously, the thousands of demon guards on the battlefield were already immensely powerful. Zhao Haoyan dispatched the remaining demon guards from the rear. In an instant, the number of demon guards on the battlefield surged to 20,000. Meanwhile, the small demons he had used as filler were already wiped out. These demon guards formed tight formations, preparing to launch a final assault on Subai's temporary command center. Thanks to the spy satellites, an overall terrain map was displayed in the void. Subai activated the gene mutator, casting it over the entire enemy area. Suddenly, a series of red alerts echoed loudly. The urgent, piercing alarms made Zhao Haoyan's heart skip a beat. A bad feeling enveloped him. The last time Subai unleashed a powerful move, he remembered this terrifying alarm sound. Could it be? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but swallow hard. He carefully calculated that the opponent's recent mushroom explosion was a magical poison attack, which would cause continuous poison damage even after it ended. With this thought, Zhao Haoyan felt more assured. All this time, his training in the outer realm was not in vain. There, he had faced monsters far more terrifying than those on Blue Star, encountering all sorts of strange tricks and abilities, surviving numerous life and death situations. Now, he had means to deal with these unusual moves. Thus, amidst the red alerts, Zhao Haoyin revealed a smile. The same tricks won't work on me, Zhao Haoyin. With that, he waved his hand. The energy within him surged rapidly and began to leak out. Waves of green power floated in the air, resembling sparkling crystals, falling upon the 20,000 demon guards beneath him. After these green forces descended, they attached themselves to each demon guardian. In an instant, an oval-shaped green shell formed around the bodies of these demon guardians, covered in strange symbols, appearing extremely bizarre. However, Zhao Haoyin himself knew that this was the dark magic he had learned, the magical shell. By releasing this skill to his teammates, he could generate a shield that reduced magic damage by 75 and provided immunity to toxin damage. With this move, even after enduring the recent mushroom cloud explosion, the demon guardians with 100,000 health could withstand the attack. Of course, Zhao Haoyin felt that it was impossible to unleash another round of mushroom explosions, as the distance between both sides did not allow for a second use. Unfortunately, the clever Zhao Haoyin, the favored one of the heavens, the lord of the outer realms, despite his meticulous calculations, still miscalculated. Su Bai was not using a nuclear bomb, but rather a biological weapon, a genetic mutation. This move would not cause any damage to any unit. It would only alter the opponent's genes, turning them into controlled, savage beastmen. The alarm was lifted. In the very center of the demon guardian stronghold, a semi-transparent shockwave spread out. This shockwave was not caused by any explosion, but was generated by a gamma-ray bomb from a gene mutator device. When it was thrown into the enemy ranks, the rays were released. After being exposed to the gamma rays, all biological genes began to undergo rapid changes, and their bodies were affected by the mutation. Now the 20,000 demon guardians were also exposed to the gamma rays. These powerful and majestic demon guardians quickly began to change. Their originally crimson appearance turned grayish-green, and the six-winged wings on their backs gradually shriveled and fell off. Their iron-like hard muscles became even more solid. The faces of the demons were also reshaped, transforming from terrifying visages into silly, somewhat cute expressions. Roar. Amid the roars of the mutated demon guardians, the 20,000 troops attacking Su Bai came to a halt. Attack. Move forward. Why have you stopped? Zhao Haoyin was puzzled. Even though his troops were undergoing transformation from the enemy's spells, at least the command was still in his hands. But now, these 20,000 elite soldiers were not obeying his commands and stood there in a daze. He suddenly looked up and gazed at Su Bai in the distance. It must be his doing. He saw Su Bai smirking as he spoke to Lizette Hanley. You just promised me 100 kisses. Where should I start? Lizette Hanley was shocked by the scene before her. The 20,000 army had instantly halted its advance. How did he do it? Since you have such a powerful move, why didn't you use it earlier? You almost scared me to death. Lizette Hanley pouted in frustration. Dear, feel free to kiss. As long as you don't mind the heat. Then, I shall obey. Su Bai pouted, ready to kiss. At that moment, they heard Zhao Haoyin's angry shouts from afar. Bastard. Su Bai? What have you done to my elite troops? What's going on? Su Bai raised her head, frowning. Zhao Haoyin really knows how to ruin the mood. Your elite troops are now my elite troops. All the berserk beasts, listen up. Attack Zhao Haoyin in the sky. You've ruined my fun. Give it your all. The 20,000 berserk warriors looked up at Zhao Haoyin above. Were the ground units planning to throw stones at me? To Zhao Haoyin's surprise, this group of berserk beasts jumped up, soaring several dozen meters high. Just now, one nearly grabbed his ankle. How is this possible? Even Lizette Hanley couldn't figure out why the ground troops could fly. This wasn't a big deal. Mainly, Zhao Haoyin's demon guards were already strong, and with the gene mutation, their power was amplified even further. Jumping several dozen meters high was not surprising. Su Bai explained with a smile. Zhao Haoyin was simultaneously casting a sacrifice to resist Su Bai's freezing while flapping his wings to dodge the countless berserk beasts leaping at him. He was multitasking. At first, he could barely manage, but soon the number of berserk beasts leaping towards him increased. He didn't even have the chance to flap his wings to gain height. Finally, he was overwhelmed. One berserk beast lunged at him, grabbing him tightly and bringing him crashing down to the ground. Chapter 191. Zhao Haoyin, ravaged repeatedly by the berserk beasts, saw his dignity shattered and suffered severe injuries. At the same time, thousands of berserk beasts surged forward like a tidal wave, their aggressive aura instantly enveloping the entire battlefield. Countless fists, as hard as iron, rained down on Zhao Haoyin with tremendous force. As time passed, his equipment began to crack and pieces flew everywhere. Zhao Haoyin's defenses weakened under the relentless assault of the berserk beasts, but he still gritted his teeth and held on. However, facing such a large number of powerful enemies, he gradually felt overwhelmed. These enhanced berserk beasts possessed unimaginable strength, and each strike was like a thunderclap, incredibly powerful. Despite Zhao Haoyan's exceptional strength, his arms struggled to withstand the relentless barrage of punches. Your demon god armor has shattered, your titan belt has shattered, your dragon high pants have shattered. This set of ancient epic equipment, inherited from the ruler of the Outer Realms, with a total defense close to 1,000 points, crumbled one by one under the merciless ravaging of the raging beastmen. They had once been Zhao Haoyan's most solid shield, but now they lay in ruins, telling a tale of the brutality of this battle. Hee, tender and delicate, not even a match for the beasts. Brothers, let us take him down together. Amidst the dust and chaos of this brutal beating, thousands of raging beastmen joined the fray. Since becoming the Lord of the Outer Realms, Zhao Haoyan had led the demon army, conquering all the small worlds. It could be said that he was so powerful that even the mere mention of his name would silence the cries of children at night. Yet now, he was pinned down by countless raging beastmen, enduring the humiliation of being mercilessly beaten. Tears unexpectedly streamed down his face. Captain Zheng Jia, nursing his wounds and resting, watched everything unfold before him, completely overturning his worldview. The once mightier Zhao Haoyan now appeared so arrogant and tyrannical. Even he, a man who had slaughtered an entire planet, found himself unable to compare in strength. The result was that such a formidable being was being toyed with by Su Bai's brutal troops, rendered powerless to resist. Speaking of Su Bai, this newcomer who had just entered the battlefield and joined the demon squad, what kind of being was he? What grudges did he hold against Zhao Haoyan? The animosity between the two was so intense that their words were filled with intentions of wanting to obliterate each other. Their actions were equally humiliating. Otherwise, Su Bai would not have allowed his raging beastmen to torment Zhao Haoyan so mercilessly. If it were Zheng Jia, he would have unleashed a wave of purifying fire to quickly reduce him to ashes, at least leaving some dignity for the opponent. In truth, the humiliations inflicted by the raging beastmen were not orders given by Su Bai. They were merely instinctive reactions of those beastmen. After all, the raging beastmen could no longer be considered human. They acted purely on their primal instincts, doing as they pleased. Su Bai, accompanied by a deafening explosion. A violent blast erupted. Thousands of raging beastmen were sent flying like kites with severed strings by the shockwave. In an instant, a suffocating aura of death rose, seemingly ready to engulf the entire world. In the massive crater created by the explosion, Zhao Haoyan struggled to stand up slowly. At this moment, he had long lost his original appearance, his entire body enveloped in a thick layer of deathly energy, his form becoming immensely large. He emerged like a shadowy demon from the depths of darkness, carrying an endless intent to kill and a breath of destruction, descending into this world. He tightly covered half of his face, his voice deep and hoarse as he slowly said, "Su Bai, you have forced me to use this move. Transform into a great demon." Before his words fell, dozens of frenzied beastmen charged forward recklessly once more. However, Zhao Haoyan, transformed into a great demon, merely raised his hand lightly, and with a snap of his fingers, he sent those beastmen who had once tormented him flying. "Su Bai, since you've compelled me to use a life-consuming great demon skill, this time, you are destined to die." Zhao Haoyan's roar echoed through the heavens and the earth. The pair of pitch-black shadow wings behind him suddenly spread wide, instantly blocking out the sky on both sides, plunging the entire world into darkness. It seemed as if black blood rain was falling from the sky. On the ground, the beastmen continued to charge at Zhao Haoyan. However, these beastmen no longer had the arrogance they exhibited when they first oppressed him. With every move he made, thousands of beastmen fell easily to their deaths. It appeared that Su Bai's strongest melee units could no longer defeat the great demon Zhao Haoyan at this moment. "Su Bai, I will kill every one of your troops, every single soldier, and then slowly dismember you. Your head will be my goblet. Only then can I ease the hatred in my heart." Less than 10 minutes had passed. The 20,000 originally invincible beastmen had been reduced to just 10,000. At this moment, Su Bai was still contemplating what skills to use for the next wave to defeat the opponent. Since the enemy was so formidable, the time-space soldier's teleportation might not be able to freeze him. The wind-up time was a bit long. The three major super weapons within him, Lightning Storm, Nuclear Bomb, Iron Curtain, and Gene Mutation, were still on cooldown. Only Mind Control and Time-Space Teleportation were available for use. However, Mind Control had just been used on the president of a certain country. It still had a cooldown of 1 day. Even if the time was not an issue, Su Bai could not guarantee whether the opponent was immune to Mind Control. Otherwise, he could use Time-Space Teleportation to send him away. The opponent was not wearing a special teleportation suit, so he should die on the spot in the time turbulence. But that wasn't certain either. After all, Zhao Haoyan had now become the lord of the outer realm and possessed the ability to traverse space. What if he withstood the time-space teleportation? That would be a case of losing more than gaining. In any case, time was not on Su Bai's side. If he didn't make a decision soon, he really wouldn't be able to cope. Thus, Su Bai clicked on time-space teleportation, aiming at Zhao Haoyan's area, preparing to release it. At that moment, Captain Zheng Jia, clutching his shattered chest, struggled to reach Su Bai. Su Bai, there is only one last chance to defeat him, which is to bestow my heart's light upon you. Heart's light? That's right. I have been in the battlefield of the myriad realms for a very long time. Starting from an unknown nobody to becoming the strongest among all teams through countless struggles. The hardships I faced are not something I can easily share with others. Now, I have finally unlocked the 4th tier gene lock. This represents the highest combat power level of humanity. I will pass this power on to you. The 4th tier gene lock. Chapter 192, All-Out Attack. Zhao Haoyan turned to ashes. Upon hearing this term, Su Bai couldn't help but feel a surge of shock. He had once seen relevant information in the main god's domain. The 5th tier gene lock achieves the position of a sage, possessing the ability to destroy worlds and create or annihilate existence. Unexpectedly, the captain of the demon team before him was just a step away from entering the sage realm. However, at this moment, the captain suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, his breath growing weaker, clearly reaching the end of his strength. Seeing that he was breathing more out than in, he probably wouldn't last much longer. Just at this critical moment, a ghostly blue light erupted from the captain's body, as if containing endless vitality. This mysterious light slowly flowed into Su Bai's body, making him feel unprecedented warmth and strength. Pure heart's light. Su Bai thought that someone as ruthless as the captain of the demon team would possess a heart's light that was absolutely dark. He never expected it to be so pure. Perhaps, despite being the captain of the demon team and having blood on his hands with countless lives taken, those he killed might have deserved it, thus not tainting the pure and flawless light within his heart. In the next moment, this dazzling heart's light suddenly exploded within Su Bai's body. The light was like a clear spring, nourishing his limbs and bones, awakening every ancient cell in his body and infusing it with unprecedented vitality. As if responding to some mysterious force, the ancient memories hidden within him began to awaken. Those long-suppressed powers surged forth like a torrential flood. The myriad races were firmly suppressed, and humanity was forbidden from stepping into the sage realm. At this moment, the incredibly hard iron locks within Su Bai's body shattered under the impact of this powerful force. Under normal circumstances, anyone would feel anxious in the face of such terrifying power, but Su Bai remained unusually calm. His gaze deepened, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, as if he had anticipated what was about to happen. Meanwhile, in the distance, Zhao Haoyan moved like an unstoppable shockwave, rushing towards this side at an astonishing speed. He charged through the countless armies, leaving no one able to block his path. Wherever he went, all of Su Bai's armored forces turned to ashes. Immediately after, Zhao Haoyan unleashed his strongest strike, wielding an unparalleled super weapon, and fiercely punched towards Su Bai. Su Bai finally slowly opened his eyes, revealing a long-lost smile on his face. With a crisp sound, Zhao Haoyan's thunderous blow landed on Su Bai, but it was utterly ineffective, as Su Bai merely raised his large hand. This hand was lifted high, then gently lowered, giving Zhao Haoyan a significant surprise. However, amidst this seemingly simple action, a powerful gust of wind howled past, creating a deep ravine on the ground, as if it had been cleaved by an invisible giant sword. This ravine extended over 50 meters and reached a depth of 3 to 4 meters, resembling a scar on the earth, shocking to behold. This was the terrifying power displayed by Su Bai after unlocking the 4th level of his genetic lock. Zhao Haoyan, who endured this strike, was sent flying like he had been hit by a cannonball, propelled backward at an astonishing speed. His body broke through the sound barrier, moving so fast that the air emitted a sharp whistling sound. Under such a terrifying impact, Zhao Haoyan crashed through 2 towering mountains before he could barely stop himself. At that moment, he was already in a disheveled state, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, clearly suffering from serious internal injuries. At this point, Su Bai could unleash power comparable to that of a super weapon with just a wave of his hand. Blood sprayed out, and Zhao Haoyan's demonic form was instantly dispelled. He touched his face, only to find that the skin on half of his face had been directly slapped off, exposing flesh and bone. He couldn't help but take out a mirror to take a look. At that moment, his once handsome and somewhat effeminate features had become grotesque, resembling the character Two-Face from a certain superhero film. How could Su Bai unleash such immense power? I can't win, not at all. At this very moment, Zhao Haoyan recalled his last experience in a distant foreign realm, where he had been brutally dismembered by Su Bai, left to await his death. Why has it come to this? I have undergone countless life and death trials, overcoming danger time and again, gradually growing stronger to eventually become the ruler of this foreign realm. But why can I not defeat Subai? Zhao Haoyan truly couldn't comprehend. By all logical reasoning, given his gradual rise, if his story were written as a web novel, he would undoubtedly be the rightful protagonist. However, before he could figure out the reasons behind it, Subai darted forward like a flash of lightning. Then, Subai suddenly threw a punch. The power of this punch was immense, leaving a mark on the land that was neither too small nor too large. But its area had already exceeded 1 kilometer. In the exact center of this mark lay Zhao Haoyan, whose chest had been pierced and was on the brink of death. Subai reached out and extracted Zhao Haoyan's still-beating black heart. Zhao Haoyan's eyes were filled with terror and endless unwillingness. He was about to be killed by Subai again. How infuriating! With a loud bang, Subai mercilessly crushed the heart. He casually found a towel to wipe the black blood from his hands and smiled at young Master Zhao, saying, "Last time, I didn't personally